make a brief statement? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but as you notice, we don't have our chair or vice chair here today. So in accordance with the city's procedures and Robert's Rules of Order, where applicable, we're going to have the secretary call the meeting to order and have you all elect a chairman pro tem just for today to run the meeting.
Do you want me to read
So
that
if the
statement?
secretary wants to call the meeting to order, we can proceed.
Yep, we'll call the meeting to order, and then if you all want to nominate anybody to run for chair, or for the time being, that'd be
Mr.
good.
Maxwell's in the middle here. I'll nominate him.
She put me in the chair.
Willing?
If you're willing to have me.
All right, so do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Gillis. Mr. Ehrenhoff?
So we have a motion made by Mr. Gillis, second by Michelle.
Yes.
Yes.
We need a motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And then
Well, thank you.
Show is yours.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. Okay, the meeting is starting according to the clock at 7 minutes after 4 p.m. on September 20th, 2023. Good afternoon. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Coral Gables Historic Preservation Board. We are residents of Coral Gables and are charged with the preservation and protection of historic and architecturally worthy buildings, structures, sites, neighborhoods, and artifacts, which impart a distinct historical heritage of the city. The board is comprised of 9 members, 7 of whom are appointed by the commission, 1 by the city manager, and the 9th member is selected by the board and confirmed by the commission. 5 members of the board constitute a quorum, and 5 affirmative votes are necessary for the adoption of any motion. Lobbyist registration and disclosures. Any person who acts as a lobbyist pursuant to the City of Coral Gables Ordinance Number 2006-11 must register with the city clerk prior to engaging in lobbying activities or presentations before city staff, boards, committees, and/or the city commission. A copy of the ordinance is available in the office of the city clerk. Failure to register and provide proof of registration shall prohibit your ability to present to the Historic Preservation Board on applications under consideration this afternoon. A lobbyist is defined as an individual, corporation, partnership, or other legal entity employed or retained, whether paid or not, by a principal who seeks to encourage the approval, disapproval, adoption, repeal, passage, defeat, or modifications of any ordinance, resolution, action, or decision of any city commissioner. Any action, decision, recommendation of the city manager, any city board or committee, including but not limited to quasi-judicial advisory board, trust, authority, or council, or any action, decision, or recommendation of city personnel during the time period of the entire decision-making process on the action, decision, or recommendation which foreseeably will be heard or reviewed by the City Commission, or a board or committee, including but not limited to quasi-judicial, advisory board, trust, authority, or council. Presentations made to this board are subject to the city's False Claim Ordinance, Chapter 39 of the City of Coral Gables City Code. I now officially call the City of Coral Gables Historic Preservation Board meeting of September 20th to order. The time is 4:10 p.m. Present today are, I'm going to ask all of the members to introduce themselves, starting down here at my right with Michelle.
Michelle Dene.
Brett Gillis.
Michael Maxwell, Chair.
Bruce Ehrenhoft.
Alejandro Silva.
And today we also have Anna Pernis, who is our board, and with her staff and city attorney is also with us. And so any distinguished persons in here other than everyone that's here? Because everyone is distinguished. Okay. Do we have approval of the minutes? Were minutes received with this package?
Yes.
Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any changes, corrections?
Yes.
Minutes? Mr. Gillis.
Changes. Okay. For case file 2023-003, under ex parte communications should have said, Mr. Gillis is a member of the Villagers, Inc. and became friendly with the granddaughter of the property owner. He stated it does not impact his ability to be impartial. Okay.
Is that a change, Mr. Gillis?
It's a minor correction. There is a major correction I have to make at the end. But I have another minor one for.
What is the nature of the change from the last paragraph? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
It's page 2, at the very top under ex parte communication. There were just a few typos in that line.
okay. So to correct the typography.
Okay. Then there was an item on page 4, case file 2023-16. I noted that this board had requested previously for applicants to present drawings that have the existing and proposed on the same sheet. I would like that included in there again. I think that was included one time in the past, but just to remind people. Okay. And then the major item is the motion that was made. Okay, sorry, there's one more item on page
quite all right.
6. I asked a question on that, the coral rock structure on 1318 South Greenway about, to the property owner as to whether it was necessary to accommodate their handicapped daughter to have the carport extended, and the property owner stated it was preferred but not necessary. I would like that included. Okay. Finally, the motion on the City Hall windows and doors. I went back and watched this again, and I think that this needs updated. The proposal was four-pronged. It was, and I think there's an emphasis here on replacement of the windows, when that really wasn't my intention. The idea was to have the restoration plan brought back, and I think we clarified that with Mr. Ehrenhoff. We had discussion about that. If there is a replacement plan, of course, that could be brought back, but we summarized that there were 4 aspects to that motion: that city staff would review and make a recommendation and participate in the process from the beginning, provide a recommendation to the Historic Preservation Board. The Historic Preservation Board would provide a recommendation to the City Commission, and should the City Commission move forward with replacement rather than restoration, that we would ask that they consider our recommendation if they choose that.
Mr. Gillis, I'm sorry for jumping in here. Stephanie Throckmorton, Deputy City Attorney. That was not my understanding of the discussion, so I apologize if that was the purpose of the discussion. My understanding was it was just referred to the windows, which is what we drafted based on the motion and the video that we observed to go to the commission this upcoming week. If that's not the will of this board, we're happy to pull that and have you all clarify whatever motion you'd like it to be made. But it was my understanding that this was focused on the windows if the windows proceeded pursuant to that section of the zoning code, which would mean they
That's
would
what I'm
not normally come
summarizing.
in this process.
That's what I'm summarizing, though, but there were 4 points that we talked about. And that's not included in what I'm reading here. So I don't have a copy of that resolution. Was that included?
I'm happy to read it to you. It was published on the agenda earlier this week, but I have it in front of me. I'm happy to read what myself and Ms. Pernas interpreted that motion to be.
And we did have the 4 parts. It was participate in the process, recommend have a recommendation to for staff to have a recommendation to you all, and then the Historic Preservation Board to review it before it goes to City Commission, and then
Provide that recommendation to the
provide
city
that
commission.
recommendation to the City Commission.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
sorry.
that's not
So-
listed here, but that's.
Yeah, that's the notes, when we went over it for the resolution. So if you want to go ahead and read the resolution really
I'm
quickly,
happy to
that
read this.
helps.
This is on the 9/26 City Commission agenda. A resolution of the Coral Gables Historic Preservation Board requesting that the City Commission direct that any alterations to the City Hall complex's windows proceeding pursuant to Section 1-104 of the city's zoning code be done in consultation with the city's Historic Preservation Officer and be presented to the city's Historic Preservation Board for review and feedback. Whereas Section 1-104 of the city's zoning code provides that following a public hearing, and I'm happy to provide this to you so you don't have to get this all, provides that following a public hearing, the city commission may authorize the modification of certain city facilities outside of certain procedures outlined in the zoning code. And whereas should the city proceed with any alterations to the windows of the City Hall complex pursuant to that section of the city's zoning code, the city's Historic Preservation Board would like the city commission to direct that the city's Historic Preservation Officer be involved with and consulted during the selection of any replacement windows for the City Hall complex. lots. And whereas should the city proceed pursuant to Section 1-104 of the city's zoning code, that any proposed alterations be presented to the city's Historic Preservation Board, along with a staff report on the proposed alterations for the board's non-binding review and feedback prior to any public hearing held pursuant to Section 1-104 of the zoning code. There's some operative clauses that reiterate that, but those are the main
So
points.
if that zoning code is applied, the recommendation was that staff be included in the process, that staff would then make a recommendation to you all or create a report for you all, then you all would make a recommendation back to the commission for any.
So how do we update the minutes to it? Can we just say,
What we can do now that we have the resolution prepared, because one happened before the other,
Okay.
we can actually include that language,
Okay.
copy paste it into this, and then we'll make those amendments. And you can actually, if you wanted to approve the minutes with those changes, we can do that, and then that way, we'll edit it before it goes to the commission agenda.
okay. I just don't want it to be lost that I'm not trying to push the replacement of the windows.
Right.
This-
No, this was in consultation, this was like, if they're with that project, that process needs to be
Okay.
reviewed by staff, or staff needs to be included in that process, and that you all wanted to participate in the recommendation of that process.
Okay.
As mentioned, that's scheduled for the city commission agenda next Tuesday. If anyone from this board would appear, it would be the chair normally unless otherwise approved by this board or
We'll deal
designated by
with
this board.
that. At the end of the meeting, I'll ask if any of you all would like to attend and present that item. But we can get to it at the secretary items, at the end of the agenda.
Finally, just at the end there, I see that this is page 8. There's discussion item, old business, new business. The items weren't really included in that, so I would move that kind of higher on the page, just to include those items that we talked about as part of that.
Okay, yeah, split it up into those categories?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Understood.
Okay, that was it for me.
Are there any other comments, changes, or clarifications required of the minutes from the past meeting from any other board members? Okay.
So I could move to approve the minutes with the amendments that were suggested.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Gillis. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Okay.
Second from Mr. Ehrenhaft.
Michelle's got it.
Michelle? Okay.
I second.
All right, discussion, any further? Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Gillis?
Yes.
Mr. Ehrenhaft?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Ms. Dene?
Yes.
That's it. Oh, Mr. Silva?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the minutes have passed. Okay. Notice regarding ex parte communications. Please be advised that this board is a quasi-judicial board and the items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature, which requires board members to disclose all ex parte communications. An ex parte communication is defined as any contact, communication, conversation, correspondence, memorandum, or other written or verbal communication that takes place outside a public hearing between a member of the public and a member of a quasi-judicial board regarding matters to be heard by the quasi-judicial board. If anyone has made any contact with a board member when the issue comes before the board, the member must state on the record the existence of the ex parte communication, the party who originated the communication, and whether the communication will affect the board member's ability to impartially consider the evidence to be presented regarding the matter. Are there any ex parte communications or disclosures today? None?
I have none.
We have none?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Gillis?
For item, for the first for the only historic designation today, 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue. A few years ago, I conducted a survey for the villagers on the North Ponce area that looked at the district as a whole, the garden apartments there. These were two of the buildings that I identified as part of that. It doesn't impact my ability to view them independently as an independent designation, but I was during that time invited in by some of the owners of the building, looked at the buildings, saw that they had the George Fink drawings on the walls, and that's been several years now.
Thank you. Any other members of the board? Okay, I have a disclosure to make. I did a scan of the building that we're taking a look at for let's see, the stable building at 290 Aragon. I did that with Mr. Menendez, who was the former chair. Okay, so
Mr. Maxwell, I might ask for a few minutes of your time before we take up that meeting just to discuss that.
I will bring that up at the time, and
Thank you.
I will so note that at that moment. Thank you. Okay, we're going to now move into deferrals. Are there any deferrals?
We do not have any deferrals, but I do have an agenda change that I would like to make to the board. We have the Public Works officials here to present to you a city project update on the intersection of Granada and Coral Way. We do have an annexation meeting this evening beginning at 6:30 that the staff needs to attend, and we'd like to hear their update first before we take on the regular agenda items.
Is that acceptable to the other board members?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Okay, then we'll so move that we'll so change the agenda if that's acceptable, and I hope it doesn't inconvenience anyone in the audience. Okay, now we're going to move into the swearing in. If any persons in the audience will be testifying today, please rise to be sworn in. Anyone who's giving any testimony, please raise your right hand and have that read. Okay.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you. Okay.
We would also need to swear in anybody on Zoom. If you could please turn on your cameras.
Raise your right hand.
Usually it comes up. Oh. If you'd like to speak on behalf of an item, please turn on your camera so we could swear you in. And staff, please.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Would you please raise your right hand?
Elizabeth and Kara, if you could please raise your right hands, or anybody else who's on video who's going to be testifying. Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to the public hearings. Okay, we have a sign-in sheet for those who wish to address the Historic Preservation Board during any period of the hearing. Do we have that active today, or we're just going to?
Yes.
Okay, so please see Ms. Pernis to do that. Okay, the following format is our procedure, which we're going to use, in which it'll be the identification of the item by chairperson, disclosure statement by board members, presentation by staff, applicant or agent presentation, public comment, support or opposition. Public comment closes. There will be only board discussion following that. And then following the discussion, motion, discussion, and second of motion, board's final comment and votes. So those are the procedures. Okay, so we have, as an agenda change item, we have the Public Works Department here to talk about a change on Coral Way and Granada.
Way in Granada.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I am Hermes Diaz. I'm the Public Works Director, and Melissa Sayas, she's in charge of our Transportation Department. So we're here to present some improvements to Coral Way and Granada. As I'm not sure you may know, Coral Way is a county road. And what triggered this, the county originally came to us, they needed to harden the signal at that location. It didn't meet modern standards, so they originally wanted to put mast arms at that location. So we said no. And subsequently, we worked through a project which will remain the string lights that are there, but in a more reinforced manner, and a series of other improvements, which Melissa will go through a presentation, some of which, have been required by the county through this process. So I'm gonna let Melissa go through her presentation. It'll be very brief.
Great. So Hermes just gave you the background on the project. This project is basically a hardening improvement project at the intersection of Coral Way and Granada. So like he said, the county had originally looked at this as a hardening project. They were looking at installing mast arms. We wanted to maintain the strain pole design that's currently at the intersection, so we applied for a grant from DOT, and we came up with a design that maintained the current conditions, just hardening the strain poles from the concrete to a steel design. We're also including some pedestrian improvements, some drainage improvements, and some landscaping improvements. So these are some pictures of the intersection right now, each corner, and the existing site conditions. As you can see, it's a lot of asphalt, not much landscaping. We're looking to make it a more beautiful intersection. So this is basically the landscape design. This is what it's going to look like. We brought these boards. The boards have the overall plan and then the different types of plants that will be included as part of the design. Basically, we're going to be putting some crushed stone along the edges, and we're going to be implanting, different plants, and we're going to be putting in sidewalks where they're not, except for on the southeast corner where we couldn't install them. So this is the striping plan. It actually has an aerial view under it as a watermark, so you can see what the current conditions are right now and what the proposed improvements are. We're going to be putting in curb ramps. We're going to be putting in high-emphasis crosswalks and making this a safer intersections for pedestrians that need to cross Coral Way and Granada.
So as you may be able to tell, the pavement is going to be reduced around the edges. Mm-hmm. And the pavement is going to be reduced. The amount of pavement is going to be reduced. And we originally actually wanted to reduce it further, but the county insisted on some of those striped areas to ensure that larger trucks can make the turns safely. So well, you're looking at a little bit less pavement than what you have there right now.
This is the signal plans. Basically, we're going to be placing the steel strain poles at the exact same locations that they're currently at, which is the northwest corner and the southeast corner. So we're going to be basically putting them as close as possible to where they are right now. As part of the county requirements, we are also going to be, we're going to be installing some supplemental poles at the corners for pedestrians and for traffic signals so that, people can see when the light's turning red or green and yellow. So that will also be included as part of this project so that we can maintain the strain pole design that's currently existing and meet all the requirements that, the county has in
So
place.
the pole that she's referring to, if you can see them at the bottom, those are standalone poles, and they'll be located at basically around every corner. So you're gonna end up with having 4 of those. They're gonna be black. We got the county to allow us to do that through some agreement, because generally speaking, they're all silver. So, but that's something that the county requires us to include in the project. So.
Otherwise, they were going to ask for like a box configuration for the strain poles, and that would require additional strain poles at the corners. So in order for us to maintain the 2 strain pole design, they requested that we put in these supplemental poles at the intersections, as shown in the plan. So that's basically the plan. We wanted to just, come here and share, these improvements and show you what we're planning and everything. And if you have any comments, we'd be, happy to take them and see,
Questions from the board?
So you're actually reducing the existing concrete area. Right now, is that area being used for cars to assist in the flow of traffic from Coral Way, for example, to Granada? I know it backs up there.
Okay, the presentation one. But, so that was what Hermes had refers to in the striping design. Some of the corners, there's some additional striping because we could not tighten the corners to the extent that we wanted to, because we had to maintain a certain turning radius, because you don't want the traffic to back up on Coral Way. So you want to allow for that movement for a car to maneuver around, a car that's trying to make a left or, trying to. So the county asked us to make sure to maintain at least, I believe, 1 or 2 cars to be able to go around. So there was an auto turn analysis that was performed to make sure that we had the turning radius that we needed at the intersection to not back up traffic on
So
Coral
you
Way.
did reduce the concrete, but you took into account traffic needs and turning
Yes.
radius, so you didn't reduce it too much. And you said you were also making sure that there were some drainage improvements. Could you speak to that?
I don't have the drainage plans shown on here, but there's some additional drainage that's going to be added at each corner. I would be happy to share the drainage plans with the board if you would like. I just don't have it in the presentation, but there are some drainage improvements that they put at each corner. There's some additional structures that are being installed.
And then this area, you're improving it by adding greenery. That's the plan. Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just comment that I'm familiar, very familiar with the intersection. And to your question about access to still make right turns when you've got a red, but it's safe, for example, okay? They're particularly going south on Granada, there was craziness because there was so much concrete. I have had times where I see the cars tight against the midline, stopped for red, and I've seen 2 lanes of cars. People are just so crazy impatient that they start honking and they just go nuts trying to swerve around. But there was so much room that they were not guided by a lane that was marked. I think this is going to be safer. And the width of that intersection, I think the addition of those 4 poles that have the hands and the countdown for pedestrians to be safe to cross is going to be a strong addition to that for safety. So.
I had a couple of questions. Number one is kind of a scope issue. Do we just make recommendations to the county, or is this the county has ultimate jurisdiction here, right? Because it's a
They have dual district in 2 ways. Number one, Coral Way is a county road. In addition to that, Miami-Dade County has jurisdiction over traffic
Signal
and
maintenance.
signalization and pavement markings throughout the entire city, including city roads. So they doubly have jurisdiction over, or even if this is a city street, we may have a little bit more leeway, but the county still needs to approve any changes to anything that has to do with traffic altogether. But so the answer is yes, and in this case, doubly so.
okay. So my other question is, we've kind of touched on it before, is the traffic flow, right? Like when a car is making a left-hand turn, either from Coral Way or Granada, traffic backs up sometimes, and if we're cutting, like a lot of times, there's room for the cars to kind of go around. And if we're cutting that down, that's fine, it'll probably make it safer. But I would like to request that maybe the signal timing gets reviewed and maybe adjusted, because you may get fewer cars through, especially going north-south on Granada.
And that's something that we'll bring up to the county. Right now, there's an SOP that's included in the plans, but if we see that there's a signal timing issue, we can bring it up to them and they can adjust it accordingly.
Great, thanks. And then my last question, sorry. So the corners of that intersection have these beautiful fountains and these beautiful features that were just restored. And they were part of Merrick's original thing, as we're all familiar. I just want to make sure that as we do the sidewalks, I know the sidewalks are important for accessibility and for safety. As the sidewalks cut through those little plaza areas, is this board or staff going to have input on that process?
The contractors will be working for us, even though it's a county road, it's a city project. So the contractors will be working for us, and we'll make sure that, things are done appropriately.
And would that come before this board again, or is this is our only?
No, I mean, the plan is for this. The next step, we'll probably do a presentation to commission at some point, probably within the next couple of commission meetings.
We need to see more, I think.
Okay, I have a question here, just looking at the plan, and you can see that on the northwest and then the southeast, although the plan's upside down, are the striped areas that are going diagonal, is that where asphalt's going to be removed?
No, that's where you're going to have asphalt.
I'm
To
sorry?
maintain, that's where the asphalt is going to remain, so that you can maintain some of these turning movements that you're talking about. We were able to reduce the
Okay,
pavement.
so
some.
that's the striping plan, then what we're looking at?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And you said that we were going to put in 2 more poles for the traffic signals themselves?
No. So the original plan that the Miami-Dade County had tried to get through was to put a 4 strain pole. Well, the original was the mast arms.
Right.
And then when we told them, no, we need strain pole design, they were trying to put in 4 strain poles to do kind of like a box configuration to like increase visibility at the intersection. And we said, no, we want to maintain the 2 strain pole designs. So as a compromise with the county, since, we had to bring this up to safety standards and everything, we're putting the supplemental poles so that we wouldn't have to put the strain poles. These are just the PED pole signals with the additional traffic signal on top as shown in the signal plans.
Okay, I don't think I really understand what a supplemental pole looks like. Could you show us one perhaps?
So if you look at the bottom,
The bottom middle.
you see how you see the PED head, which is the signal that has the hand and the countdown, and then just above that is a traffic signal.
Oh,
It's on
that,
the pole.
okay. All right.
So where you have the PED signal, you're going to have a traffic light so that, like, let's say you pull into the center of the intersection, you can still see if the light's red,
Oh,
yellow,
so you're,
green.
okay, so, all right. So you're now talking about putting in 4 supplemental traffic lights?
Yes, at the
Okay.
corners.
All right. Plus the crosswalks, the lights, okay.
I do think, I appreciate that because I think that it's a better solution than the mast arm. I think
Right.
it's more sensitive and those are a little bit better scaled.
And we'll paint those black, which was something the county gave us, as opposed to your standard silver.
Do you think that we could look at something that would be more of the historic character by, just, and look, I know you guys know this, but you need to tell the county, this traffic circle and the traffic circles on this street are the core and the history of our community. This is where, this street is where our city begins.
So unfortunately, when you're looking at these intersections, the options you really have, either you do a traffic circle, which we're not suggesting for this location, you have the mast arms, or you have this. I mean,
No,
it's
yeah,
really-
but no, I'm talking about the poled light signals, the 4 poled light signals.
The only other alternative was what Melissa was mentioning, where instead of having 2 string poles, now you got 4.
Okay, well, if you would, why don't you look in, if you went to Suites or something, which Suites doesn't really exist anymore.
The what, I'm sorry?
If you went to the Suites catalog for, traffic control signals, you could find something that might be physically appropriate, visually appropriate rather than
We
something.
have to have, because the county maintains all the signals, so we have to get something that
They
the
like.
county, we cannot just go through something because the county just won't maintain it, and we're not able to really do that. So what the county gave us, that we'll paint them black. We can talk to the county to see if they have
You're talking
anything.
about the design, the.
We can do
of
it.
the-
I mean, we obviously can. I mean,
We can
downtown-
have a discussion with the county to see if they have any catalog of anything that might be a little more decorative, so to speak.
But it also has to meet hurricane requirements.
Right, because it
and
also
everything.
has to meet, but we can certainly have that conversation with the county. I'm not sure how,
Hey, look, we had this argument over streetlights for years
Right.
and years and years. And by the way, at the northeast corner of this, there is a memorial plaque to Sarah Anderson, who spent years and years and years, and I know this because I was an advisor to this board back in the 80s.
I did that
And
plaque.
she brought in the streetlights, but it took years to do that against what the county wanted us to do. But we finally got the ones that we wanted. And so I guess that's maybe the impetus for us to look and continue to be unique if we can.
right, we could definitely look and see whether there's something more decorative for those poles, but we'll see what the county tells us. Unfortunately, I'll be honest with you, I'm not too hopeful, given our,
I honestly think that it's probably better not to make them decorative, and hopefully they'll disappear more. And so what you've selected, it seems to me more appropriate than trying to do something more decorative and elaborate, because it's never going to look like it was there in the 20s. So, I mean, for me, I would prefer this. I'm sorry, I'm coming in this late and then launching into my opinion.
Okay, I need to let the record show also that Board Member Donna Spain has joined us.
So the sidewalks, what are they connecting to on Granada? Because I've walked on Granada. There's no sidewalks there, are there?
yeah, they disappear under the they basically become a rock path once you go around the monuments. So now we're actually extending the sidewalk so that you can actually get through, with the exception of the southeast corner, which there's just too many things there and there's no way to get around it. You do have a connection through the park, so you can technically, somebody in a wheelchair could go through the park and get to the other side.
That was telling you that you need to talk to the county more.
It's a sign.
But yes, they're being extended so that facilitate the crossing, which actually Melissa has received some requests over time
Residents
for
that
that
walk on
for that
Coral.
very same reason. You know, you got to walk through that rubble, I guess.
It's
Those rocks.
shells, it's crushed shells,
Like a
which is
crack.
what it was originally, and you want to maintain that.
We're maintaining like a crushed stone around the area so people can walk into the fountain, and we're also maintaining, if you can see, around the edges.
30 inches.
Because usually you don't grow, it's hard to grow anything that close to the pavement to begin with, and you have a truck that gets too close to it, you end up getting rutting, so we're maintaining an edge around that area. And then also within the fountain, so people could just walk up to the fountain so that it remains accessible, you know.
I think what Mr. Maxwell is suggesting, that instead of crushed white rock, traditionally there were crushed shells. I think they call it coquina. Is that
Right.
Just crushed shells,
Yeah,
yeah.
crushed shells. And if that could be used in a historic intersection like this, the material certainly must be available, and it's what
we
normally
are.
gets used, right?
If we could bring it back.
Yeah, but they're talking about
I know.
putting crushed stone instead.
Well, there's the crushed stone, the white crushed stone.
Yeah, the picture in the lower right shows crushed
being
shells.
maintained.
Yeah, that's what it says.
You want me to bring it closer?
Let's bring
They'll
it.
maintain it.
So,
This is all gonna be that crushed stone. This is gonna be concrete sidewalk, but this is gonna be that crushed stone, and this is gonna be that crushed stone. Because like Ernie said, sometimes you have issues
The
with
crushed stone, I mean, there's traditionally, and there is now, crushed shells.
Right.
Okay. You know, and I'm sure you're going to maintain those where they are. But you're saying in the new area, next to the asphalt, you're going to put in crushed stone.
we're going to,
for 30 inches.
Yeah, right there. That's where the
We don't
crushed
have a
stone.
laser pointer.
do we have a laser? No, we don't have a laser.
I'm sure that we have a laser pointer. I'm sure they do.
There you go.
So you see that this paver band, the 30-inch paver band around the radius, that's gonna be the crushed stone, and then this portion that's around the fountain. I'm not worried enough to talk, Ann.
Oh, here we go. So you do have about a 30-inch
Paver band
paver band
of crushed stone.
crushed on right around the edge, all around it. Mm-hmm. And
And
then
around the
also
fountains.
around the fountains, right here, to maintain accessibility to it.
It's that grayish hatch.
That's great patch.
And the more white.
So I hear you.
Concrete
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The grayish hatch is stone, is the
Is
the
a
crushed
crush,
shell?
yes,
It's a crushed
the
shell.
crush,
So,
yeah.
and sorry, the sidewalk, can you highlight where the new sidewalk is going to be on
The
each
sidewalk
corner?
is going here, here, here. It's very faint, but it kind of goes like this and it ties into the sidewalk that's back here. This one, same thing, it goes here, here, and it
Then
goes
straight.
straight. Same thing here. See, it goes, this is concrete, right? It goes all the way through. Here,
We couldn't.
there was no way to get through, unfortunately, so there's a path around here. Somebody can go through the park. There's just no way to get through there. So,
You know, I guess the question comes up, you know, what's the need for sidewalks when we have sidewalks already, but they're just a different material? Why do we have to put in these concrete sidewalks, you know, when they're not there now, and they're not part of the original plan, nor were they ever intended to be? These are little parks and, I mean, and you can traverse that quite well. I mean, is this,
My opinion as an engineer, for a thoroughfare like Coral Way, that crushed-stone path is not really an appropriate walking path.
it's been that way since 1922. That's older than you and me put together. And it's served the purpose. And do we have any figures or data of anyone that's been hurt on it so that we have a need for it? Because that proposal goes counter to what this board stands for. Okay, we are here, as we read, to protect the integrity of the design, and this goes against that in many ways.
We'll take that under advisement, but we put those stones in little parks and people to walk around. I don't think of it in a thoroughfare like Coral Way. That's inappropriate. Especially for people in wheelchairs and things like that.
When you walk north, say you're at the Biltmore and you want to walk to here, along Granada, are there sidewalks on both sides? I don't think so.
There are sidewalks on Granada here. I'm not sure they go.
Well, I'm talking north of this intersection on Granada. I don't believe there are.
North of Anastasia, I think they're
On both sides?
No,
Because they go to the country club. The country club's
But
north.
not on both sides.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, you got sidewalks here. I'm not sure how connected they go all the way, but yes, they're definitely, at this location, you do have sidewalks. They die off at the monuments.
I think there are. I walk that,
Yeah.
I used to walk that every day.
I don't know. I remember having to
Certainly
cross
are.
for some reason. Maybe it was flooded or something. I remember walking one time from the Biltmore trying to, I think I was walking from the country club to the Biltmore or vice versa. I don't know. Something was not connected. And
Well, yeah, because you gotta walk through those monuments, and it's pretty much a rock and dirt to get through. I mean, that's.
Have you done any studies? Has there been a showing of increased foot traffic at that intersection that would require for safety concerns?
We didn't study for that. I mean, what you see right now is a standard for, I don't think any engineer will consider rockstone at a place like Coral Way. We've done that in parks,
This sets a bad precedent for the future. And because we have two more of these. And, I mean, we're going to get the same thing. I mean, ultimately, if we continue to do this, we're not going to have what we had. And I'm going to tell you that I know you're not asking us for a vote. You're just giving this as information. But I'm going to tell you, I do not like this.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally am against, the lights are fine. Okay, I understand that. The restriping is fine. But the additional sidewalks and, some change of materials.
No, we understand. It's just that, from the 1920s when this was originally done and now, I mean, the carts are different. I mean, you've gone from Model Ts to SUVs.
Well, here we go right now.
And,
okay.
right.
So we can see it right here. Okay.
There's a concrete sidewalk.
And now if we're going to be adding, green to this, I can see extending the sidewalks where you would take out the asphalt.
Right, and that's actually what we're doing to some extent. We're actually reducing the asphalt and the sidewalk is being taken out. If compare that,
If you turn around,
see how close that pavement is to those monuments, and if we could put the presentation back,
to the other board.
look how far they are now. So we're pushing the asphalt out.
How much?
I have to get the dimension off the
We have to
roadway
get a
plans.
dimension.
I mean, yeah, that's part of the problem. It's difficult to understand what's going on from a presentation picture from a before and after where we can't compare it.
Can you go back to the other one, the one that shows them together?
you don't have a street rendering of the proposed?
No, we
That
didn't
would be,
do it.
you had that for that other circle that they approved. If I'm not
For the circle,
mistaken.
no, we didn't have a street rendering for the circle.
I remember seeing something.
Can we go back to the presentation for a second?
Mr. Diaz, I think that if you pass around that, it may be, that, you said that had an aerial superimposed?
Yes, there
That
you
one?
go.
Well, that was in the striping plan. If you go to the striping plan, you can kind of see the watermark of the existing condition right now.
You'll see roughly.
So you can see the dashed lines
You see
of the edge of
that's right
pavement.
here. That's the existing
Not
edge of
very
pavement.
well.
The new edge of pavement is
So you're not adding trees, you're just adding grass.
Yes.
Low-level shrubbery, unfortunately, because of the visibility, you cannot really add.
I don't think you should add trees, because the intent of these plazas is to open up into a wide open space and then go back under the canopy. It was done for the automobile. I mean, the amenities on the side were pedestrian.
So you can tell right here. See, this is the current overhang. Right here.
Okay. Oh, okay, there we go.
I have another question.
Right here.
The vegetation that you're putting in here, have you talked to Dina Bell about it, and is it, okay. Because it should be historically accurate if you're gonna be doing that.
Oh, okay. You're looking at stuff that it's, we don't have.
As long as she's involved with it, I'm
She
happy.
was the one that came up with the plan.
They're the ones who did
The landscape design that
She
you see on
redid
the
the Merritt
boards.
House, it was
yeah,
great.
because
Dina recommended these.
Perfect.
back here.
She
Yeah,
did
they're
that.
the ones who put that together. You know, we're engineers, you know, we do lines and
That's what I was worried about.
so, you know, I kind of joke said that I have people in my office who do the pretty, so that's Dina's. Dina's the team who does the pretty, you know.
Some of these grow, pretty tall, though, if I'm not, I mean, not tall, but especially the one on the upper left. The idea is to have a broad open vista there to be able to see the features, the coral rock and the fountains.
Right, that was
We can
my
definitely
worry.
take a look at that. I think the location where that's being proposed is further back. But I think we can definitely take a look at that and see maybe whether that's appropriate.
To not cover up the coral rock features and fountains
Right.
and all that.
I think those are being proposed on the side, right? Yeah. Oh, sorry. This one is Simpson stopper. The MF4. Yep, it's here. The Simpson stoppers are here, here, and there. On the side. We can definitely take a look at that, work that out with Dina, maybe put something,
Should be all low.
keep it low. Okay, I think that's a very fair comment, absolutely.
I would encourage you as well, if you're open to it and if the county's open to it, to maybe explore an alternative material for the sidewalk as it abuts that crushed coquina. There are concretes that you can add aggregate to, or you can treat it in a different way, so it's still a hard surface that complies with ADA, but it maybe ties in a little more with
Maybe like
the
a
crushed
sand,
coquina.
you know, so you put that
Something
sand
a little
finish,
rougher,
maybe.
something a little
Make a
wider,
larger
something.
aggregate.
No,
different
I'm thinking,
material.
you seen those, they throw sand on the thing and they wash them and they kind of look like they have, I mean, I don't, he's laughing, he's not, he's not buying it. So I don't know, I'm just thinking aloud.
I'm gonna re-interject because you keep talking about crushed rock, okay?
Yes.
We're not interested in seeing crushed limestone put all over the place.
Correct, you mean the crushed oolite?
No, we're
No, you
interested in
want the
seeing.
shell.
We want the shells.
Got it.
In the,
Noted.
Michael and I are the ones that are being vociferous about it, but I don't know. I think it's a traditional intersection. You're trying hard to make the landscape changes fit with what was there, and it would be a shame to put inconsistent materials.
Crushed shell, got it. Understood.
Crushed shell on anything that is not the paved
Right,
sidewalks that you
understood.
you have safety reasons for putting in or access reasons for putting in.
Absolutely.
I'd like to see no crushed rock.
Gotcha.
And all traditional
Okay.
crushed shell.
Yeah,
I
don't-
assume that they're still maintaining crushed shell in certain areas, right?
I don't-
So there's no reason why
I
we
don't see
shouldn't
that
be
as a
able to do
problem.
that.
Put it down a bunch of.
Okay, so please put that as a formal
Will do.
suggestion,
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
Thank you.
The very last thing is, since we're looking at this, would you please, on the southeast corner, around that tree where you can't go through the old monument anymore?
Right.
You know, to get to the sidewalk, could you look at extending the sidewalk closer to the street in some way to go around that rather than having to go all the way through the park? Because that's what's happening now
To extend the sidewalk which way, north?
on the southeast corner.
On the southeast corner.
Okay. So if you look at the top,
The root systems are really significant on that tree because, I mean, it's even overgrown where the controller cabinet and everything is.
what's happened is there's a natural break through there.
Right.
And it's a banyan tree or something, and the roots have just, I mean,
It's
We-
high as the wall.
Her team,
Go around toward the street.
we could take another look at it. I think her team already went through that exercise, but we can certainly take another look. I mean, as you can tell, our original preference was just to interconnect everything.
And it's very tricky when it comes to sidewalk, pedestrian connectivity, because there's a certain distance that you have to maintain from the edge of pavement, especially on, like a busy road, like Coral Way and Granada, while we're maintaining the curbless
Right.
design. We don't want to, put a curb.
And that's the trade-off, because when you have a curb, your sidewalk can be closer to the edge of the travel lane, that way you don't.
It can be directly adjacent.
Because now, you could have a curb, when you have a curb, you could have a sidewalk right adjacent to the curb. When you don't have a curb, then I believe the minimum is 6 foot. And in a place
it
like Coral
depends
Way,
on
it may
the
actually
speed.
be wider. So, but we could take a look at that. I mean, the only other thing would be, I hate to say it, but remove that tree, but
Oh, no.
there you go. Okay, so that's it.
You're at a public meeting. This is like televised.
Talking about trees, and just as kind of an aside, we have pushed the county to go to 30% tree coverage, okay? Because the poorer areas of the community don't have that. They have about 10 and anywhere between 10 and 14, and we need 30%. And so while we're doing this and getting the county to do this, they introduced the High Line, of which they took down 1.5 miles of mature mahogany trees, which now make which makes 1.5 miles of US 1 much hotter, in favor of putting up little trees and palm trees. So we don't want to do that. We like what we've got here.
So I live in an unincorporated county, and when I moved into my neighborhood, there were a lot more trees. And then we went through Wilma, Katrina within the same year, and then Irma thereafter. And a couple of things happened. Some trees fell, including a very large black olive and a humongous Royal Ponciana that I had in front of my house. Actually, the Ponciana didn't fall, but it got so damaged that it had to be removed. And I'm gonna have to plant it myself eventually, because the county, unfortunately, is not gonna do anything. At some point, that'll be part of my, and I've seen throughout the neighborhood how the canopy is significantly reduced from what it used to when I moved in, because a lot of people are concerned too about the hurricanes, and so I live where you're saying. I mean, Coral Gables is blessed. We have this canopy, makes it all beautiful. I think we have the second highest canopy coverage in the state of Florida. I think the only one that has more coverage than us is Gainesville, which is a very rural area. So it pretty much tells you in an urban environment, which makes it even harder, right? Because you're dealing with all sorts of other modern improvements. So I think it's a credit to the city, how we've taken care of that canopy. So we definitely want to maintain that.
You guys do a fabulous job with the trees.
Thank you.
Absolutely fabulous. So, thank you.
So no, we're not going to cut the tree down.
Do we need a motion or anything on this? This is just an information item.
Just very quickly, we have some interest for public comment. This is not a quasi judicial item, but if
Happy
the
to do
chair is open to it. All right, so is there anybody in person that wants to speak?
Good afternoon, Board. Peter Kiligian, 1108 Obispo Avenue. I came today here just to witness your meeting, since I will be coming in front of you several times in the future. I wasn't aware this was coming on. I also sit on the Board of Architects, and I'd have a couple of questions. Will this be coming to the Board of Architects?
No, that wasn't.
Okay. I appreciate what you're under with the county, but I would imagine that you might hire an architect to design those plazas. I don't see the relationship between the monuments and the landscape areas in a drawing, or as a matter of fact, I don't even see the landscape areas with the crosswalks. It looks a bit, disjointed, in my opinion.
So it was designed by a landscape architect?
I understand that. I know Dina very well. but I don't think that
Dina
all the
wasn't
elements are
landscape
together.
architect, that it was with her input, but, we actually hired a landscape architect, consultant.
Okay, so what is the relationship of the new sidewalks to the historic significance of the monuments? Can you explain
I'm
that
not sure
to
what
us?
you mean by the relationship.
Well, right now, what I see here is it's kind of a mix of different sidewalk geometries and sizes, and how do they relate to the monuments that exist on the corners? There's existing monuments. This board has said that those are the most important intersections for our city.
The monuments are in the rear.
Okay, is there a drawing that shows that? Is there a three-dimensional drawing, anything that? Okay. So I ask that you please request some more information and a clearer depiction of what's really going to happen in those intersections. Because I know that when we come for historic projects, we have to clearly depict what is going on and how it's going to affect the overall landscape and look of the city. So that would be my request from your board. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would wish to speak, either on Zoom or? I believe there's someone on Zoom. Okay. Please bring them up. We have a telephone call. Okay, all right.
Okay, she's ready to go. I mean,
Hello, can you hear me, everyone?
We can.
Yes.
This is Carelia. I live on Altair Avenue, longtime resident. And I am listening to this presentation, which I obviously didn't know it was happening because it wasn't on the agenda. But I do have two observations. And one, I totally agree with the speaker before. I am always so dissatisfied to see these presentations without that historical component. It really is very important that that is the priority. I mean, the renderings don't even show the monuments. All I see is, some greenery. Mm-hmm. And, I agree with Mr. Maxwell and the others that have been dissatisfied with what is being shown. These are our historic entrances. And when I hear that society has changed and now we have SUVs and not Model Ts, well, that's why we have historic preservation. And we have an office of historic preservation so we can preserve what we have. So I'm really dissatisfied. I think this should have been better presented with the historical component to it and how that would be affected. My other observation is I have actually emailed and been in conversation with the city manager regarding these black streetlights that are going up around our city. We're becoming South Miami, basically. And I've been told that that's what FPNL has. So again, I go back to the Model T or the Model Ford. You can choose any color as long as it's black. So, we are a historic city. We pride ourselves, but then if we start losing what makes us unique, where are we going to be? Silver should be the default on the streetlights. Silver, not black. And if you drive down Riviera, I think it's Riviera. I don't know if it's Riviera Drive, Miller Road. They're black streetlights going up around the University of Miami, and that's what I've been told. The commissioners didn't know about it. No one knew that these black streetlights were going up, and the city manager said, "Well, that's what we had, and we just had to choose it." Again, these going back to the monuments and our landmarks, these should not be administratively approved. These projects that have to do with historic landmarks should go through historic preservation. The historic preservation board before they proceed any further. So thank you for listening to all my observations, but I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to add that we're not proposing any streetlights, I mean pedestrian or as part of this project.
You said that there were.
Yes.
There's
Traffic lights.
Traffic lights.
Well,
Not
that's
streetlights.
in the same vein as what she's talking about.
The black color was suggested to us by on the poles. I think that's part of our discussion to make it more appealable, but silver is actually easier because the county actually requires a special maintenance agreement for the black. So if this board prefers them silver, I think we can definitely take that into consideration. But you're looking at your standard poles, I'm just saying.
You're in a rock and a hard place, and make them silver if you can. I mean, that's what we've got for everything. And so, I mean, I looked at them too when we were going around, for the Pont Circle thing, that new development. They've all got these black street lights and everything else is silver. And we're doing green for the restoration of the old ones that we have too. So we've got a kind of a hodgepodge. So maybe we could standardize them. I don't know.
Right.
Is there anything else that we could do this?
What is your next step?
Any other questions from the board? or by
Present
the
to
board?
commission.
To the
Public?
commission?
That will be the next step. Probably won't be the next commission meeting, maybe the one after.
May I make
But
one?
we'll take your comments into consideration. We'll have a discussion with the consultant and with Anna's team, and we'll.
May I make one recommendation, please,
Sure.
for future? I know it's difficult to make presentations to this, but if you would show a before and after, 2 boards at the minimum would really clear everything up. I mean,
Yeah.
that's very confusing to look at
Right.
like that, and then
So,
going back and
so
forth.
maybe we should have probably done that. I mean, we put that on the presentation, but I think maybe bring them to the board will probably be a better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But also a visual rendering.
Do take a look at the sidewalks too, because they're really funky looking. I mean, that's just the way that the sidewalks that are proposed.
We could take a look at the geometry.
I don't know that they're really necessary like that.
Is there any chance of coming back to this board with
By the-
other drawings that shows the relationship between the monuments and what you're doing? Or are you on a track to get to the commission by a certain date?
Our goal is to go to the commission with the next couple of commission, not the next one, maybe the one after. We'll have to have the discussion with the manager. I mean, the monuments are there. I'm not sure doing renderings. I mean, we'll have to talk to the consultant. I mean, you're looking at an additional expense. So, but, we kind of worked this out with Ramon back in the time. I mean, this goes back with him. Originally, we wanted to put curbs, and Ramon was pretty adamant not to.
Oh, yes, well, you know how I feel about curbs.
About what, I'm sorry?
How I feel about curbs. I feel probably stronger than Ramon does about adding
Right.
curbs.
So we took the curbs out. So we can highlight. Sorry? Right. Ramon was the one who was insisting on the black poles on the signal. So we can definitely reconsider that.
Ramon isn't here anymore.
Right, but we're working on certain things, and certain
know.
things get addressed, and then we can definitely look at it. It's hard for us to kind of go back to the beginning.
Have you talked to the historic department staff about this?
We've had discussions since we looped in Anna when she came in, and they actually make some suggestions on the original plan as far as the relationship between the crush. I'm not gonna say stones. The crushed shell and
was
the
pink
concrete
aggregate.
sidewalk. So originally there was a lot more.
It was pink.
Originally it was pink, which is actually what Ramon wanted, based on the original discussion. It was like a pink crushed aggregate. So we took that out.
So the original version of this that came to staff and to myself was pretty much all gravel, and it was a pink, reddish terracotta color. And this is when I said, is Dina involved? And can we get Dina involved? And that's where a lot of the greenery and landscaping started, and then how you kind of create a balance, because before the amount of gravel was competing with the monuments that are there, especially with the color that they were proposing. So there has been changes and updates made, and then this is what's been before you today. But just, I know that we've been on this for about an hour now, And I know we've got other items here today, so if there's any other last comments.
Just in general, I think what you're hearing is that we're all kind of uncomfortable with this. And I realize that it doesn't come to us for a vote, right? We don't have approval up or down. But if you're not up against a funding deadline or something like that, it may behoove everyone to kind of take another look at this and make sure that everyone is comfortable, including historic and including the board, before proceeding, because it is an important intersection.
We'll take that into advisement. We do have a grant, so usually those comes with a deadline, but I think we can definitely take a look at it, and we'll have some discussion
Yeah, and we'll
about how
continue
to
to work
proceed.
together
Yeah.
as well, to take into this comments into consideration.
Right?
Is there any other questions? Any other comments by any of the board members? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next item. We're going to, we have a local and historic designation, case file LHD 2023-005, consideration of the local historic designation of the property at 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue, legally described as lots 5 and 6, block 13, Coral Gables, Douglas section, according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 25 at page 69 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, Florida.
So staff will make a presentation via Zoom. Mr. Maxwell, if you don't mind putting your microphone closer, just so the minutes for future discussion. All right. Ms. Elizabeth. Oh.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Elizabeth Guin, Historic Preservation Coordinator. The following presentation is a brief summary of the Historic Designation Report prepared by staff. Can you please play the presentation?
We don't have any audio on the presentation. Thank you.
You hear that? I don't hear it.
There's no audio.
The two apartment buildings at 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue, now known as the Mendoza condominiums, are before you for consideration for designation as a local historic landmark. The designation was requested by the Homeowners Association. As per Article 3, Section 3-103 of the Coral Gables Zoning Code, criteria for designation of local historic landmarks. A local historic landmark must have significant character, interest, or value as part of the historical, cultural, archaeological, aesthetic, or architectural heritage of the city, state, or nation. For designation, a property must meet one of the criteria outlined in the code. 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue are eligible as local historic landmark based on 3 criteria. Historical cultural criteria, criteria 4. It exemplifies the historical, cultural, political, economic, or social trends of the community. Architectural significance, criteria 1. It portrays the environment of an era of history characterized by one or more distinctive architectural style. And criteria 2, it embodies those distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style or period or method of construction. Multifamily residences at 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue are in the Douglas section of North Ponce. They sit on the south side of Mendoza Avenue between Galeano Street and Ponce de Leon Boulevard on a 110 by 115 interior lot. George Merrick founded Coral Gables in the early 1920s based on his vision for a fully conceived Mediterranean-inspired planned city. The city's developmental history is divided into three major historical periods. During the initial developmental period, architectural design specifically combined elements commonly used in Spanish, Moorish, and Italian architecture and has come to be known as the Mediterranean Revival style. During the 1920s, structures and amenities were built almost exclusively in accordance with this style. The construction of these Mediterranean Revival style apartment buildings at 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue occurred during this initial phase, simultaneous to the incorporation of the city. When developing Coral Gables, Merrick purposely embraced both City Beautiful and Garden City movements. The Garden City precepts included apportioning sections of the city to specific uses and planning for various incomes. In 1923, Merrick purchased portions of Douglas Grove Fruit Farm from pioneer John Douglas with the intention of developing it as a distinctive section with high-grade apartment houses that would provide housing affordable to working-class residents. These apartment buildings were amongst the earliest built and are examples of how Merrick implemented this vision. Ponce de Leon Boulevard was planned as a wide boulevard to serve a main commercial thoroughfare. In 1925, when these apartment buildings were permitted, several of Coral Gables' important buildings and institutions were located along Ponce, and the monumental Douglas entrance was under construction. Throughout the early 1920s, Merrick continued to acquire land and lot sales and construction boomed. As Coral Gables grew exponentially, so did its workforce, and home construction could not keep pace with their burgeoning numbers. By mid-1925, the housing shortage in Coral Gables was critical. Founder George Merrick attacked the issue on several fronts, which included reaching out to his friend Melvin L. Rauschenberg, a noted Atlanta builder. Rauschenberg agreed to build 10 apartment buildings and to bring his crews and materials from Georgia. Permits for the first 5 of these were issued in September. Rauschenberg hired architect H. George Fink. Fink was one of the most well-known and prolific designers in Coral Gables. He was a dominant architect of George Merrick's original design team, and his early work was a major contributor to defining Mediterranean Revival style in Coral Gables, which became emblematic of the city. Fink continued to work as an architect in the Coral Gables well into the 1960s. He served on the Coral Gables Board of Architects from 1945 through 1956, acting as its chairman for 7 years. Fink's early work for Merrick included residences, apartment buildings, and commercial structures, and his use of the Mediterranean Revival style differed between these 3 classes of buildings. For Rauschenberg, Fink designed apartment buildings that had a street presence of a single-family home, thus making them distinctive from other contemporaneous apartment buildings in the Douglas section. All accounts indicate that Rauschenberg built the 10 apartment buildings as promised. The first 5 permanent in September 1925 were at 114, 116, 122, and 126 Menores Avenue, and at 135 Mendoza Avenue, 4 of which are shown here. While the permit books do not record Rauschenberg as the owner or builder for the other apartments, additional research reveals that he was also responsible for the apartment buildings at 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue. The permits for these addresses, number 1860 on November 28th and number 1917 on December 5th, respectively, were issued to J.T. Flagler with H. George Fink listed as the architect. However, Fink's permit title blocks for these addresses show that they were designed for Rauschenberg, and their dates indicate they were drawn contemporaneously with the Menores Avenue apartments in September of 1925. Like his other apartments, they are 2 stories and have the street presence of a single-family home with front yards. As was common, Merrick's Coral Gables Corporation retained the rights to the property until the commission was complete. The recordation shown on the bottom right indicates they were complete in January of 1926 and sold to the Mendoza Corporation. The locations of the remaining apartment buildings have not been located to date. In this 1938 aerial photo, you can see the initial construction that occurred in the Douglas section. Note the Douglas entrance at the top right of the photo. The arrow indicates the location of 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue. Within the orange block, Fink designed at least 10 two-story apartment buildings in the 1920s. 6 of these were for Rauschenberg. Unfortunately, as construction was ramping up in the Douglas section, the 1926 hurricane hit. It curtailed building in the area, a trend that continued throughout the economic depression of the 1930s. However, while construction ground to a halt in other sections of the city, the Douglas section did see slow, continuous building of apartments into the 1940s, most likely due to the marketability of rental units during hard economic times. In the 1940s, with the general resurgence of buildings coupled with the increased need for affordable housing, the city established the Douglas section as part of the Coral Gables apartment district to encourage continued apartment construction, a trend that continues to present day. The area is now referred to as North Ponce. Hence, originally planned and developed in the city's apartment house area, the Douglas section has retained that primary use with multifamily buildings, 126 and 124 Mendoza Avenue being amongst the first of these units built. Merrick sought out Rauschenberg to build apartment buildings in the Douglas section to meet the dire housing shortage for working-class residents. A review of the Polk City directories indicate the apartments were occupied shortly after completion. Their professions were primarily salesmen, teachers, service staff, and civil employees. These are the typical makeup of the tenants for the first several decades of the complex. Of note is Leonard Davis, who was the Coral Gables building inspector. It was originally known as the Mendoza Apartments until 1938. The property was purchased by Harry B. Cunningham, who lived on site with his wife Edith until his death in 1959. The property then passed to his son Lester. During this time, from 1938 to 1968, the complex was known as the Cunningham Apartments. After the Cunninghams' 30-year tenure, the apartments reverted to its original name. In 2006, the buildings became condos under the Mendoza Condominium Association, and it retains that status to date. The multifamily residences at 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue are built in the Mediterranean Revival style, which characterized Coral Gables in the 1920s. Some of the character-defining features are listed here and are further detailed in the designation report. Features of note include the balconies, articulated coin entry surrounds, the carved eave brackets, and the broken bullseye lintels. The two-story apartment buildings sit side by side, approximately 10 feet apart. There have been no additions to either structure. Constructed of cement block and finished with a textured stucco, the main mass of the rectangular buildings is under a flat roof with parapets. A low sloping hipped roof spans the front facade and wraps around the corners, which creates the impression of a hipped roof structure from the street. The hipped roofs were originally clad in two-piece barrel tile. The current S-tile was installed in 2001. The street-facing north facades have the presence of a single-family home with its front setback, proportions, scale, low-pitched hipped roofs, arrangement and types of windows and doors, as well as the ornamentation. The buildings are similar in appearance and read as a pair, but have variations in detail that gives each a distinct street presence. The front facades are symmetrical with a central entry. The entry ensembles are similar. Each has 3 cascading steps. The entries are demarked with the masonry coin surrounds. Both front entry doors appear to be the original panel doors. The front entry at 126 Mendoza Avenue is arched, and the door originally functioned as a bifold door, most likely to facilitate ventilation through the first floor hallway and up the stairs. As seen here, the original hardware is intact. On the exterior, a modern closure mechanism was installed, and the door now opens as one unit. Other notable features on the front facade include the roof, eave, cornice detailing, the balcony ensembles, and the decorative lintels. At 124 Mendoza Avenue, the low-pitched hip roof wraps around the front of the building, has an extended eave with the decorative carved brackets. At the west end of the facade, there's a second-story metal balcony supported by metal scroll brackets. The balcony, as well as the pair of French doors leading onto it, are original. At the first floor, the windows have a decorative, simple, broken bullseye lintel. At 126 Mendoza Avenue, the roof ends at the front facade plane and is finished with a running molding cornice. Like 124, the second-story west end also had a balcony. It was originally an ornately carved wood balcony. The shed roof portion of the balcony is extant. At an unknown date, the remainder of the balcony was removed, and the simple metal railing installed in front of the French doors. All windows on these buildings are recessed with protruding sills. The fenestration pattern and sizes have remained unchanged to date. The windows under the hip roof's front portion are wooden casements, and most appear to be original. The remainder of the windows on the side and the rear elevations are single hung. These buildings are now condos, and a few of the owners have replaced the single hung windows in kind, but most units have the original windows. Due to the vegetation and proximity of the buildings to each other and to the neighboring properties, full view photos of the side facades are not possible. The original permit is provided for reference. And here are rear views of the property looking west. Note the pair of round vents above the second-story single-hung windows that are found to the side and the rear facades, as well as the rear coral rock perimeter wall. The rear doors were replaced at an unknown date. In conclusion, from a comparison of historic photographs and the architectural plans with the extant apartment buildings, as well as an examination of building permits and records, it is determined that the property at 126 and 124 Mendoza Avenue have retained its historic integrity for nearly a century. The multifamily residences at 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue were built by Atlanta builder Rauschenberger at the request of Merrick to help alleviate the housing shortage in the mid-1920s. It is a prime example of architect H. George Fink's distinctive use of Mediterranean Revival style in the city's first apartment district. And it is additionally significant as the apartments Fink designed for Rauschenberg utilized this style in a slightly different manner to create distinctive multifamily units which had a street presence of single-family home. These multifamily residences were amongst the first built in the Douglas section, and they stand as an example of the early development of the city, as well as Merrick's vision for a Mediterranean-inspired city which included both high-end and affordable housing, as well as embracing Garden City precepts of apportioning sections of the city for various uses. The building at 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue retain their historical integrity and significantly contribute to the historic fabric of Coral Gables. It is part of a collection of quality buildings that serve as a visible reminder of the history and the cultural heritage of the city. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the local historic designation of the property at 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue based on its historical, cultural, and architectural significance.
Good afternoon. I just want to state that we did receive 5 letters of support by Ms. Dolly McIntyre, Ms. Ellen Dyer, Mr. and Mrs. Pardo, Ms. Sandra Skidmore, Ms. Carlia Carbonell on behalf of the Historic Preservation Association of Coral Gables, and Mr. Bruce Fitzgerald. And I believe the property owner is here, and they were the applicants.
Would you like to make a presentation, sir? 30.
Hi, my name is Kenneth Garcia. I live and own property at 20 Alhambra Circle, and I own property, a unit at 126 Mendoza Avenue. I'm also the current board president of the Mendoza Homeowners Association, And I'm here to speak in support of the proposed designation for all the reasons outlined in the presentation by staff. Thank you for your consideration.
Any questions of the board? Any discussion? Are there any questions? Okay, well then we'll open it here to the public hearing. Are there any comments from the public other than the letters received? Any presentations from the public on Zoom? Okay. Hearing none, then we'll close the public portion of this and we'll move on to internal discussion. Is there any further discussion here on the board?
It's just nice that the two of them are still here and intact. And I really appreciate the people living there submitting this.
We'll hope you go for TDRs in the future. Use the money for restoration. Any further discussion? We'll call that to a close then, and we'll move forward to and close the board discussion. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I just have to get to the right page so I do it properly. Well, maybe it's not at the end. All right. I make a motion to approve the local historic designation of the property at 124 and 126 Mendoza Avenue based on their historical, cultural, and architectural significance.
All right, we have a motion from Ms. Spain. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second from Mr. Ehrenhack. Any further discussion? Okay, all right, please call the roll.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mr. Gillis?
Yes.
Mr. Ehrenhaft?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Ms. Dene?
Yes.
Ms. Spain?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Look forward to it and keep up the good work. Okay, the next item on the agenda, transfer of development rights, sending site, case file TDR 2023-001. Consideration of the transfer of development rights for the property at 290 Oregon Avenue, a local historic landmark, legally described as lots 1 and 2, block 37, Coral Gables, section K, according to the plat thereof, as recorded in plat book 8 at page 33 of the public records of Miami-Dade County, Florida. The application requests the approval of a maintenance plan, authorization for the transfer of the unused development rights, and issuance of certificates of transfer. The Historic Preservation Board reviews the maintenance/preservation plan pursuant to section 14-204.4 of the zoning code. The receiving site, 290 Valencia Avenue, has previously been approved by the Preservation Board case file TDR 2022-001 on February 22nd, 2022. I have, on this, I have a...
If we could just take a 5-minute recess, if you don't mind, Mr. Maxwell?
Let me finish the disclosure. I have a disclosure here that I did a survey on this site about a year ago with Mr. Menendez. Okay, we have a request from the city attorney for a 5-minute recess. So,
If that's all right with the applicant? Thank you.
Yeah.
Recordings.
Brett, when you looked at these sites, Okay, we're resuming the board meeting at 5:45 PM.
So as stated before the break, this is an application request for approval of the maintenance and preservation plan at 290 Aragon Avenue. The John M. Stabile Building is as significant as one of Coral Gables' earliest commercial buildings and is also a good example of the application of Mediterranean revival design, materials, and decoration to a small mercantile building. Constructed in 1924 as the 51st structure in Coral Gables, the Stabile Building was originally built to house an ornamental block plant company. In 1928, the building was converted for restaurant use, which is how the building is most often remembered by longtime citizens of Coral Gables. The building remains mostly intact since its designation on September 20th, 1984. Many of the permits on file for cosmetic changes include painting, windows and doors, awnings, roof repairs, installation of coping and signage. The interior of the building has undergone multiple renovations due to the change of the tenant and the use of the spaces. The building requires restoration work to bring back some of the original historic features, including the installation of new awnings, windows and doors that are appropriate to the style of the building. The John M. Stabile building has a high level of historic integrity, but some of the alterations detract from its historic character. The attached Historic Preservation Board application contains a John M. Stabile building stabilization and maintenance plan report prepared by R.J. Heisenbottle Architects. The report evaluates the general condition of the building and site, identifies those areas that require immediate repairs, proposes corrective actions, and a maintenance schedule for future repairs, and assigns corresponding repair cost estimates. The report is based on field observations. The report concludes that the building has undergone some maintenance and is in overall fair condition. The building elements in need of most repair are roof surface covering, roof flashing, roof drainage, metal fire escape, and the balcony. All of the requested development rights will be transferred to the receiving site at 290 Valencia Avenue, also known as 2601 Salcedo Street. The receiving site was reviewed by the Historic Preservation Board on February 16, 2022, when it was determined that the TDR of 290 Valencia Avenue would not adversely affect historic landmarks, affect the local historic landmarks within 500 feet of the receiving site, which include 280 Miracle Mile, the Miracle Theater, and 2506 Ponce de Leon Boulevard, the George Fink Studio. The Historic Preservation staff recommends the following approval of the Maintenance Preservation Plan for the property located at 290 Aragon Avenue, legally described as Lot 1 and 2, Block 37, Coral Gables, Douglas, Section K, according to the plat thereof, as recorded in Plat Book 8 at page 33 of the Public Records of the Miami-Dade County, Florida. And applicant is here and we'll have a presentation.
Good evening. I'd like to thank Anna for getting us on the agenda tonight, and to all of you for taking the time to go through the stabilization and maintenance plan. My name is Nina Caruso. I am the Director of Historic Preservation at R.J. Heisenbottle Architects, and here with me tonight is John Leonardo. He is the owner's rep and has worked closely with me on this project. How do I begin the presentation? Oh, there we go. And this is slide one. There we go. Lago Brickell Business retained R.J. Heisenbottle to prepare the stabilization and maintenance plan for Part A, Historic Preservation Information for the Transfer of Development Rights application. The stabilization and maintenance plan includes an existing conditions assessment with prioritized repair and upgrade recommendations, associated cost estimate, and as-built drawings. The intent of the report is to document the existing conditions of the building to determine the effects of time with regard to degradation of the original construction materials, and to develop a program to ensure the building's long-term preservation. Just general information of the site. I'm sure many of you are familiar with its location at the southeast corner at the intersection of Aragon Avenue and Salcedo Street. And it was locally designated in 1984. Just going to reiterate some of the information that Anna just shared with you. The building was constructed in 1924 to house an ornamental block plant company. It is significant as one of the earliest commercial buildings in Coral Gables. It is a good example of Mediterranean Revival style architecture and is recognized for its noteworthy, elaborately framed entrance at the chamfered building corner. Over the years, the building has been used for many uses like a restaurant, a sportswear company, chiropractor office, jewelry store, and a bookstore. And a portion of the building is currently occupied by a barbershop that was renovated in 2020, and the remaining area in the building is vacant, but was most recently occupied by a bank that renovated the space in 2005. The existing condition assessment evaluates the current condition of various architectural and structural building components and identifies maintenance deficiencies that will lead to or that are causing damage. The report provides a building analysis broken down by component, has the appropriate treatment recommendation, and then prioritizes those. The conditions are rated as good, fair, or poor, and describe the actual condition of the components at the time of the survey. And then those components are rated based on their priority as critical, serious, or minor. So the building has, as a result of the recent renovations, the interior is in good condition, and the exterior has received various upgrades like new windows, doors, canopies, and exterior lighting. However, the exterior has not received a comprehensive exterior restoration, and all of the elements combined really in poor condition. And so for the sake of time, I'm only going to just focus on the items that require attention, understanding that all of the other ones that are covered are in good condition and have had recent work. So the first item, the wall structure, its materials, concrete, masonry block, and cast concrete. This is in fair to poor condition. At the south elevation, you'll see that there are cracks at the top of the parapet wall, and then lower along that, along the wall, there's a lot of scuff marks. The times that I was there during the survey, there is a lot of vehicle traffic in that alleyway. So the proposed corrective action for this is to fill per the structural engineering report, to fill these with knife grade caulk, and then to chip, route, and remove loose cast concrete material to expose the full length of cracks, clean any rebar, and then patch the surface with concrete patching mortar. Restucco and then repaint. And this work is planned to be undertaken within one to 3 years. The next item, the exterior wall surface coating. Stucco, this is in fair to poor condition. This is really interesting in that the stucco has been painted over so much over the years that I suspect that many of the paint, all sorts of different types of paint, that's sort of interlocking and it's failing and creating these fine hairline cracks that are really all over the building. In addition, there's damaged areas of stucco and then those scuff marks I had just mentioned. So the plan is to remove the deteriorated and loose layers of deteriorated paint via pressure washing down to a sound surface. Prior to undertaking the pressure washing, the recommendation would be to prepare a mock-up to be able to adjust the pressure to ensure that we're not damaging the stucco that's below. And then once it's down to a sound surface, any areas of damaged stucco that are there is to properly repair that before repainting. And I made sure to underscore that the stucco is a very important character defining feature. My coworker just did some incredible research and work with stucco that's at the Coral Gables Museum. So I've recently just learned a lot about stucco. This work is also planned to be undertaken within 1 to 3 years. Next item, roof surface covering. The majority of the roof is the rolled asphalt with the terracotta barrel tiles along the roof edge. And the rolled asphalt is in fair condition, probably at the mid to end of its life cycle. But the areas where the roof abuts the wall surface, on the picture on the left, is the second story portion, and then in the report, might be on the next slide, it abuts the adjacent property. But the asphalt patch that was used is starting to alligator, and there's cracks there. So to protect it, we're recommending putting a silicone white roof coating over the existing asphalt to give it more longevity, to expand its lifespan. And then we're also recommending the barrel tiles are built up with like other pieces of broken tiles underneath, and some are loose. To secure that, recommending using a polyset, roofing tile adhesive, to ensure that they're stable. Next item, the roof flashing. There's metal flashing at the portion of the roof where it abuts the adjacent property line that's in fair condition. And then there's this odd flashing at the second story at the east elevation, the photo on the right, which it's very inconsistent. You sort of see it, it steps up, and then you don't see it, and then as it turns, there's none on the east and then the south elevation either. Which is likely what's contributing to the hairline cracks along the parapet wall. So the recommendation is to, and you can sort of see the rolled asphalt stop short of the parapet wall. So when applying the silicone roof coating on the roof, just to continue to go over the parapet wall. This will be included in the roof work, and that will take place within 6 months. Roof drainage systems. These are not in good condition. There's no existing roof drain cover. The downspout at the west elevation discharges just above the surface of the sidewalk. And at the south elevation, the rainwater collector is missing, as well as the downspout, so the water just drains right onto that wall. And then the downspout at the second story south elevation, that's just dropping right against the wall as well. So the recommendation is to install a new downspout extension to lead water away from the wall in the second story, reconnect the leader to the underground drainage system. Prior to connecting it, check the drain lines to for blockages, make sure that they're working properly. And then at the existing scupper location, install a new rainwater collection box. This will also be undertaken within 6 months. The windows are in good to fair condition. At the north elevation, peeling paint was observed on the window frame, and concrete damage was observed at the bottom of the jamb. And then at the south elevation, noted that there's missing muttons from what appears to be an applied simulated divided light grid. So the recommendation is to patch the window jamb and then paint the windows and reapply the missing mutton for that simulated divided light grid. This work is to be planned to be completed within 5 years. Metal fire escape. You can see the photo on the right. It's a little sketchy going up there, a little wobbly, but it's not fully connected to the roof. So the stair is unstable, and then it has peeling paint. So the plan is to properly secure that to the roof and repaint it. The balcony, probably the most character-defining feature of the building, is really in poor condition. Many of the wood components show signs of deterioration and rot. And additional investigations are really needed for this, but it is likely, based on the condition of the porch floorboards, that the tops of the brackets likely contain rot. So there's going to more investigation is going to happen there. And then at the base of the posts, there's also rot conditions, as well as along the railings where they join the post. So many of the porch components are going to require, hopefully in some instances, Dutchman repair, but also probably replacement to ensure the structural stability. And this work is estimated to be completed within a year. 2 more shots of the balcony. fun little observation. You were talking about the sweets catalog earlier, and sure enough, I pulled the Nina catalog from the APT Heritage Library. So this was a fun little feature on the building. One of the anchor bolts is missing on this, but overall it's in fair condition, and a bolt should be inserted, should be repainted, and then we're also recommending putting one on the other corner to help protect the wall once those repairs are made to the wall. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Mechanical systems are generally in good working order, but there are a few items that should be addressed. The MEP report provides recommendations for making repairs to the existing systems, installing programmable thermostats, and then replacing damaged insulation on the condensing units. The damaged insulation will be taken care of within a year, and then the remainder of the work is planned to be completed within 3 to 5. Electrical systems are also in good working order. The MEP report provides recommendations for labeling the electrical panels, providing an electrical receptacle within 25 feet to service the condensing units, replacing batteries and exit signs, providing exterior light fixtures, adding emergency lighting, occupancy sensors, raising the communication wire that runs just above the fire escape landing at the roof, and replacing lamps that are burnt out, adding covers and fixing the broken disconnect on panel B. So a lot of good general maintenance items. The replacement batteries, and one of the first things that's going to happen is put new batteries in the exit signs, install battery ballast for emergency lights, burnout lamps, and adding fixtures at the west elevation, and providing weatherproof covers for exterior receptacles and raising the communication wire. And then later, labeling the electrical panels, providing a new electrical receptacle, and installing occupancy sensors and making upgrades to panel B will be undertaken within 1 to 3 years. So that photo on the left, you can see that wire just sort of coming across. You have to be very careful when you go up to go underneath it. So as a fire escape, that needs to be moved. And then the pictures of the panels at the rear. Lastly, the plumbing. Plumbing systems are in good working order. The MEP report provides a recommendation for labeling the full open valve and backflow preventer valve, and then repairing the broken condensate line, which is contributing to some degradation of the wall in this area of the building. This will be repaired within 1 year. So here's a summary table, which is really based on the priority rating, and then it has the associated cost estimate. And before I'll pause there, but I do have some other things that I would like to share, but maybe I'll do that before you jump into, okay. So we've had internal conversations, the team, just sort of there are, and you can jump in when you want. We've been having conversations. I've already prepared a proposal which has been given to the owner to really, as they identify tenants and look to fit out that former bank space, understanding that we're going to need a permit for that, is just to really do all this work at once, because we're going to have to come in for a COA and we're going to have to come in for a permit. And these are all just really good preventative maintenance items that should be addressed. And is there anything else that you would like to say, John? Or?
Good evening. My name is John Leonardo, and I've had the pleasure of working with 3 different owners in this building since before 2005. So it's one of my buildings I love in the Coral Gables downtown. You probably remember, I remember Julius Sir. He was the gentleman that opened up what was the original Books and Bookstore with his nephew Kaplan, and there was in this little section of the store, about 800 square feet. And then, like Nina was saying, there was a lot of other uses in that building. There was a gift shop. There was a restaurant one time. But at the time that I got there, the space that became the bank space, which was the Space Coast Credit Union, they bought out Eastern. Eastern came in, and that thing was a shell. I mean, it looked like it was from 1930. They came in and spent like $750,000 to completely redo that space, and really in 2005 brought it up. So they were there for 17 years up until this past January when they didn't renew the lease. They opened up a location not too far away over in the Bird area, and they weren't operating that office as much, so that brought the space to vacant. The owners that purchased from Mr. Sir were clients of mine when they bought it, and they did the work with the windows and the prominent front door. They did work on the stucco and did other repairs, and they kept it, I guess, probably about 3 years. The gentleman that owns it now is he's a Brazilian real estate owner and developer, and he purchased the building with that tenant. And it was there was an art studio there, the art studio there for a while that was leasing the space what used to be the bookstore. And he bought it in a 1031 exchange. He had sold a Walgreens store and did a 1031 exchange to buy that building. And I guess I kind of fell in love with it. That's what happens with these buildings. And he bought that. And that time, the Mankind, which is more than a barber shop, they have a steam room and they have a small bar there, and it's been very successful. He unfortunately opened up 3 months after the pandemic started, so he was a little bit of a loss. But the landlord worked with him because he put a lot of money. That was really a complete redo of everything in the front space, and he worked with him. The guy's doing very well. It's been very well received by the community, and they've done very well there. So then up comes the bank, and they didn't renew in January, and we put the space on the market. And I always describe these historic buildings, because I've dealt with other ones here and other cities, is either people love them or they don't. It's tenants. So the ironic thing, we have a neighbor across the street, Neat Waxing. They've been in business for 20 years, and it was time for them to move from their space. So about 60 days ago, we signed a lease with them. And so they're going to be occupying that space. And they're excited because it's the original owner is staying with them, but the daughter of the entrepreneur that basically has bought the business to expand it and improve it. So they're over there working and to get that in position. The TDR sale, what happened was we were approached by the developer of the receiver site, one of his representatives, if we would sell the TDRs, and the owner decided to do that. And I think it's a blessing, not in disguise, but a blessing in the open, because after these inspections and after the things that Heisenbottle showed out and all the inspections, I mean, I never saw anything like this. People with laser cameras and all kinds of equipment inspecting the building to come up with these necessary repairs to maintain the building. So it's a blessing, because the result of TDRs is this gentleman's going to receive capital from those TDRs and tax exemptions. So it all kind of fit into place, and it's going to go for a good project, So, like I say, it's the building is, it needs some maintenance, and we've put that into effect. What the owner plans to do is once he knows this is approved, he's going to have a Heisenbottle put together the applications and everything to move forward with the maintenance and the repairs that are necessary. So he's very happy about that. So is there any questions for me? Hi, Donna.
Questions for the board?
How are you? I was just saying hello.
I know. How does La Palma look?
I go by there the other day. I think it's fine. It's opening up a restaurant. So
it actually sparkled.
Sorry, we have history.
Not for this. So anyway, that was another building I was heavily involved with, which has now turned out to be they opened up back again, and it's, they did a fortune of work in that building. Let me tell you, those two guys, that bought it. So they were the ones, because they were locals. So anyhow, I'm very proud of 290 Aragon. It's been with me a long time, and I'm glad to see that this TDR approvals come up, because all it's going to do is keep the building in the right condition and keep it moving forward. Both leases are for long extended periods, so we expect everything to go well there.
Questions, discussion, board?
Well, I just have a comment. The biggest issue I've always had with the TDR ordinance is actually the inability of staff to track the work that's required to do. I really appreciate if you're going to go forward with it as soon as the TDRs are approved, because it's almost impossible for staff to require someone to pull a permit unless you have some kind of clout with approval of the TDRs. And so it's been always difficult in the past.
I think that, and of course, I know Richard for a long time. That's why I recommended that his firm take the lead on this, because he really knows this business very well. And the lawyer of the gentleman who's a local here, and they really appreciated the work that Heisenbach has done. I mean, the cost of what they did, it's about 30, all the planning and all the things that went on. It's about $28,000 the guy has spent. So he's seriously moving forward, and he sees it as a long-term investment. So everything in that report can only, help the building. To me, that's good. Things are going to get fixed. The moisture and water and things that affect these buildings is going to be under control. And his plan is to move forward with it. He felt if he had a schedule that was presented, that this would be a plus in being able to get everything done, and with the impact of the cost of it. So I promise.
I have a few questions.
Please.
Okay. The last time I was in this building, maybe a year ago, it had a significant sewer issue, something with the plumbing, or I don't know what it was, but they definitely had an issue. Has that been resolved?
I have to say yes. I didn't know about that.
Okay.
John?
I didn't either, but the current tenant there, they're not experiencing any problems with the building, any of these physical problems. They're very happy there, and that place is clean as a whistle because they're dealing with the public. They have a steam room, and they have massage facilities and things like that. So by nature of the type of business they have, and same thing with the neat waxing. I mean, they're another type of operation that requires sanitation and cleanliness in that. So anything that would come up like that would be immediately addressed. I'm not aware of any complaint about that issue in the building.
Okay. And then images 20, I'm trying to find, because the page numbers, where we're talking about the leader discharge is just above grade level and is not connected to underground drainage system. That is number 20. And then number 28 is partial north elevation of addition, camera facing southwest, note disconnected piping, damaged stucco, and biogrowth. It seems like a lot of these are disconnected. Is that because they're overflowing?
So this one is the condensate line for the AC, and I think that this one is just 28 and 29. That's just broke. The other one is the only one that, the one on the south elevation discharges just above grade, but there's no pipe there to receive it. This is the only. So I guess there's only 2 downspouts on the building. So this is the only one that has that directly below it.
Mm-hmm. It just becomes a danger when these overflow. I've walked by there. I didn't notice it the way that it's depicted here. I just noticed that there was an issue because it spills out onto the sidewalk, and then it's already raining, so that makes it even worse whenever you have like an inch of water coming out there. So that definitely be, I think you listed that as something that was going to be done in the first iteration, though. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And then, I don't know if this is something for you, this is more of a general issue that we have time and time again. As examples, images 31 and 32, just how the alleys in this city look. And that would go to city staff too. What can we do to improve this? Because when you look at the back of this building, I don't know how, it's like you start, I know with one thing, you have an AC, then add another one, and then pipes and wires, and it just...
You'll notice in one of those pictures, there's two like pipes that are leaning against the building. What happened was when the bank moved out, I suspect their moving truck backed into it. That delayed us by about almost 2 months to get the electrical back and to get the permits and everything, and or else we would have been here a long time ago. And so that all got repaired, and they put a brand new panel in as a requirement for that permit. So, but yeah, I know when you look at the back of it,
we have a homelessness problem starting now. We have a pigeon problem. And whenever you go down these alleys, this is what is contributing to that. So I would just point that out if there's anything you can do about it to improve it. I know it's more of a systemic problem. We have to get the entire business district on board with that. But anyway, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Discussion by the board? Any other questions of the applicants and architect?
No, I just want to express appreciation for this excellent information and presentation and all the detail
Thank you.
put into this. It's very impressive.
she had the help of an intern that was like, wouldn't let it go, making sure everything got done, making sure that all the pages were right. It was a pleasure because if not, I would have been sitting there doing it myself. So, but no, and you know, Richard, how serious he is about, you know, this subject. I know him for many years. He was a client of mine when he leased space in the building he's in. And so that's why I told Mr. Cardozo, I said, this is the person you need to use because, first of all, they know it and they'll approach everything the right way. And he's very thankful that that's taken place.
Do we have any other public comments? Anybody on Zoom? Or do we have any letters of support that to be read into the file? Okay. Then there's no one else in the audience that wishes to speak? Okay, then we're going to close the discussion, the public hearing then. Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion here on the board further to this? Okay, I'm going to reiterate that I have I won't say a conflict whatsoever, but I was involved in the scanning of this. I've also been involved with this building now for 40 years. So I knew Julius Sayre very well in this building. So with that, do we have a motion?
And just for the record, Mr. Maxwell has confirmed that you remain free from bias, able to vote on this today? Can you
Yes.
confirm? Thank you.
I think everyone here has been in that building many, many years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Like to have a motion?
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve the maintenance preservation plan for the property located at 290 Aragon Avenue for the reasons stated and based upon the staff recommendation and information provided.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Mr. De Silva?
Yes.
Okay, Michelle, you've got second? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, you want to call the roll?
Ms. Spain?
Yes.
Ms. Dene?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mr. Ehrenhaft?
Yes.
Mr. Gillis?
Yes.
And Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay. We're going to move on. Okay, we've already discussed the City Commission and the City Projects update, which is item number 8. Okay, we move that to the first. We have items from the Secretary at this point.
Yes, sir. A few items. So as discussed earlier today, the resolution to go before the City Commission regarding the City Hall complex windows We do need someone from the Preservation Board to attend to present that item. So we would like for you all to nominate someone, or if somebody wants to volunteer, and then we could work with the city clerk to see if we can get a time certain once we coordinate who can attend to present.
When is it, Anna?
It is on the 26th on Tuesday.
What time?
Begins at 9 a.m.
Any idea how long one would have to stay at the meeting before this is heard?
I wouldn't want to guess, but as Ms. Pernas noted, we could always request a time certain from the mayor at a time that's convenient for a board member. No guarantees, but that would be a no earlier than time.
Brett, since this was your baby suggestion, do you want to volunteer to do it, or are you otherwise busy?
I don't know. I'd like to talk to the board members here. I mean, I do have another appointment that day. I could see about changing it, but I have always had the perspective, unless the staff changes now, every historic preservation officer we've had has stated that the windows should be restored and not replaced. So that would, I don't know if that, where we stand with that, or what.
So just one thing to note, this is an item of your board requesting action from the city commission, so it's not staff's request or staff's presentation. So for that reason, it can just go as it is, and as it was read, be presented to the board, to the commission, excuse me. But if somebody from the board would like to appear, they can. So it's not staff's request. I just want to be clear that it's coming from you all to commission for action. So if no one from the board appears, normally it just goes forward as presented to the commission, and they can choose to act or not act based on that resolution. So I don't want to speak for Ms. Pernas, but it's not staff's presentation or staff's request to the commission.
It's nice, though, to have someone from this board, because it's important to the board, someone shows up.
Right. Yes.
And then if they have any questions, the commission can ask that person that's there.
Does anybody from the board, would someone from the board like to attend?
I wasn't here for the discussion, so I don't think I'd be the right one to go.
All right, I got it. I mean, I'll be happy to if necessary. Okay.
The other question is, I mean, I looked at my calendar, I have 2 appointments that day, so I can't be there all day, I already know that, and then I don't want to be leaving there and then leave.
Would they be able to provide public comment at the beginning that would support, so that way if you wanted to attend via Zoom and.
Last time they didn't call public until like 2 hours into it. So even that's a problem now.
Can they submit a letter in advance?
Yeah, again, if somebody could zoom in. It seems like Mr. Maxwell has indicated he's available. If the
I'll be
board
happy to
wants
go.
to designate him, that would be appropriate, or if not, somebody else can.
Okay.
So if we want to nominate Mr. Maxwell, if there's somebody that wants to be backup, but if not, then it will still move forward. It's just having someone there to be able to present and support that.
Second.
Right? So could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Okay, Ms. Spain?
Yes.
Ms. Dinesh?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
I'll recuse myself on that.
I'm afraid you are required to vote. You can vote yes or no, but I need a vote.
Yes, you can vote on it.
I know.
Yeah.
I'll vote for myself then, if that's what you want.
Okay, Mr. Ehrenhaft?
Yes.
Mr. Gillis?
Yes.
And Mr. Silva?
Yes.
It's funny.
If you'll please send me the resolution and the time.
Yes, I'll coordinate with you and I'll get in touch with the city clerk's office to make sure we have a time certain set and per your schedule.
Thank you very much.
I don't want it to be twisted that we're trying to push replacing the windows. That's all.
No, this is the way that it's worded is that any modifications to the windows of the city complex. So that would include if it's restoration, repair, renovation, replacement.
Okay.
So it was worded kind of like in.
Or maybe even use the word treatment or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then, and Mr. Maxwell to be able to clarify any questions that they might have.
And I'll be happy to make a report back to the board.
Thank you.
The next item I have is I did receive absence waiver requests from Ms. Rolando, Mr. Garcia Ponce, and Mr. Durana. if we could have a motion.
Mr. Duran still on?
Mr. Durana is back on the board. Sorry, I should start over there.
Oh, okay.
He was reappointed at the last commission meeting as a board of a whole, as a whole appointment, and Mr. Albert Menendez is now no longer on the board.
Okay. Okay, so we have a request. Are they absent for good reason?
Yes, they meet the criteria for being absent.
Okay, so I'll move to approve the excused absence of the three members that have.
Mr. Rolando, Mr. Garcia Ponce, and Mr. Durana.
Yes.
Just to repeat.
Second?
Second the motion.
And roll call, please.
Yes. Ms. Spain? Ms. Dinesh?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mr. Ehrenhaft?
Yes.
Mr. Gillis?
Yes.
And Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And then the last thing I have for you all is the Historic Preservation Board Annual Report, which is before you. Sorry to get this to you last minute. We were reminded by the clerk's office that it is due to the manager October 2nd, and this is our meeting in advance of that. So I could just go over some of the updates here. The purpose of our preservation board has not changed, so I'll go into the major accomplishments. In 2022 and 23, 20 properties were added to the Coral Gables Register of Historic Places. 35 special certificates of appropriateness were reviewed by the Historic Preservation Board, and 130 standard certificates of appropriateness were processed by Historic Resources staff. One application was processed by the Historic Preservation and Ad valorem Tax Incentive Program, and 5 applications for transfer of development rights. The Historic Resources and Cultural Arts Department issued over 100 significance determination letters, completed over 300 inspections on historic properties, assisted in the rehabilitation and restoration of the Fink Studio project, assisted with the replication of the White Way Lights project, and assisted with the reconstruction of the Merrick House Coral Rock Wall project. Staff planned and coordinated events at the Merrick House to include 100 Voices oral history series, a proper garden tea, and hosted the Sundays on the Porch with George. At this time, there are no recommended ordinance changes. There are no recommended membership requirement changes. The cost of maintaining the board has not changed since the number of staff working on has not changed. And the only thing that I'm working on the accounting on is our balance on the Historic Preservation Trust Fund. And I can provide that all to you with the final number via email. This was last year's number. We were just kind of figuring out where, getting that accounting completed by, with the help of finance, since we're kind of still getting Evelise up to date with all the programs and changes from Infor to Eden and the programs that we use for our accounting. So if there are no modifications or if there's anything you'd like for me to add, we can do that now. And then what I'll do is I'll make the revisions, and then the acting chair could sign it.
It's a good report. There was discussion previously about the Historic Preservation Trust Fund and funds from TDR sales going into that.
Okay.
And
I may be able to include a breakdown depending on whether or not any of them have actually been.
and if that's going to happen or not. I think that would be a good thing to notice too, because it still appears to be in flux.
Okay.
Okay. And in terms of the recommended ordinance changes, there's still the discussion on the TDRs, which, we'll talk about when we have open discussion in a moment. Are there any other things that the board needs to discuss?
I have a question regarding the, where did it say? Issued over 100 significance determination letters. Okay, I know the reissued ones, those are getting charged a much less fee, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yet, the problem I've always had with that is that each time somebody submits one of those, a new review is supposed to be conducted. So why are they paying a fraction of the amount if an entire new review has to be taken? We had a problem on 1,000 Ponce where the first letter they had, this is going to continue happening. The first letter that they have, the building was not 50 years old. When they come back to ask for another letter, it has turned 50 years old, and that's a general threshold we have. So, once one letter goes out, the building's not 50 years old, I get it, okay? Then it comes back, it is, but they're just expecting to get that same letter come back whenever that probably shouldn't be the case in some of these that I've seen. And plus they're paying a fraction of the fee whenever you're doing an entirely new review.
Yeah, I think, well, and I think I heard Donna start, but I would say that I agree. I have received some that got letters. Their initial letter was maybe 14 years ago.
Right.
And so what I've done when I'm receiving those is looked at the file, because we have paper files for all of those. And then we now have Laserfiche, where we're able to access all the documents. So I kind of start from scratch because I have to upload it all into our permitting, our backlog, and then our supporting documents within our website when we're posting them on Fridays. So, and maybe this is just because I'm new, but this is how I've started to do them. So I am doing some initial new review of it, but we're always going to pull. I think what makes sense of the initial fee being more is that we're doing that first pull of information, and that information from that time period is not changing. So we're kind of then picking up from there. Does it meet the criteria for the 50 years, and then going from that standard? So it is a significant amount lower. I understand that.
Yes.
And we do receive them very frequently.
And the other problem is they get a letter from, like you're saying, 15, 20 years ago. Now the building's over 50 years old and they haven't torn it down, but they keep getting these letters. The building continues to deteriorate. It seems to me like there's a broken process there where, especially if the building was under 50 years old and then turns 50 years.
I think the letter 3 states that it's only good for a certain
18 months.
18 months. So if a building is 49 years old, it could get a letter that would be valid for after, when it has been 50 years old for maybe 6 months or whatever. So that, there's loopholes there is all I'm saying. So would be good to look at if there's a way to make that so that for these buildings that happened. One of them was 1,000 Ponce. It was one of the best, probably the best new formalist building in the city of Coral Gables, and it's gone. So there's an example, you can look at and see how we could do to improve that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Do we need a motion to accept your report?
Yes, the report needs to be adopted by the board.
Okay, I'd like to hear a motion, please, to adopt the Historic Preservation Board Annual Report Fiscal Year 10/2022 to 10/2023, as presented today.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The motion is, Donna, did you make the motion? Okay. And Michelle, you seconded?
Yes.
Okay, great. Call the roll, please.
All right, Mr. Silver,
Yes.
Mr. Gillis,
Yes.
Mr. Ehrenhaft,
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell,
Yes.
Ms. Denige,
Yes.
and Ms. Spain.
All right, very good. What else you got, Anna?
That is all the new business from me.
Okay.
Anna,
Got a couple of questions here for you.
sorry, the annual
have
ethics training.
Oh, sorry, one announcement. So September 29th is your annual ethics training. You've received some reminders on that. We will continue to work with you all if anyone cannot make it. We do really want to push that any new members, especially that have not attended in the past, are able to physically attend. And so what we will continue to work with everybody as, we get requests.
Can I ask a
Friday a
question?
week, guys. Everybody's got to attend, so show up. They have bagels and all kinds of nice
There will be
stuff. And
snacks.
everybody's really,
It's from 9 to noon
yeah.
at the
For CLE credits for Ms. Dunaj, if she wants some free CLE credits.
Oh, that's an encouragement.
Yeah, there you go.
And bring any discarded medicines that you need to throw away.
And batteries. We've got a battery
And
drop off.
Batteries,
too.
okay.
Yes, if you all, if you're able to attend in person, we'd really appreciate it. If not, it will be recorded and we will provide it afterwards. But as always, we prefer to have everyone in person. We'll have someone from the Commission on Ethics there to speak as well. And hopefully we will entertain you with our
Where are we going to park?
previously we've got, we may have a coordination with 255, 255 Alhambra. There's a public parking garage right there, and we should be sending you an update about that later this week. Otherwise, there are some city lots nearby we're happy to direct you to.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, Anna.
No, that's a good reminder.
Under old business, I've got a follow-up question for you that we keep bringing up. What about that house on Segovia? Segovia. The
You might have to be a little bit more specific with me.
It's in the 1100 block, and we looked at this, year and a half, 2 years ago, and we were moving to designate the house. The owner, a woman, said that it's a single-family home there on Segovia, and it's white, and it's in terrible condition. I want to say it's 11 something. I can't remember. Not Segovia is nice. Not on Segovia. My brain's fogging.
Castile?
What's that?
The one on Castile that's...
No,
that's
let me
being
look up real quick, just for a second, just so I make sure that I'm not just totally off base. Let's see here, hang on.
Mr. Maxwell, you mean Sevilla.
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 Thank you, Kara.
Close.
Right.
Thank you.
29 Sevilla.
And I lived there for years. Yes, and it's about the 1100 block. It's a white house, single, it's has a garage that's falling down in the back.
Wasn't that designated?
No, she asked for a withdrawal or for a recusal. Donna, you should recall this. She asked for, delay, and it's been like a year and a half now, and the house does nothing but fall down. There's a big dumpster in front of it. There's a notice of some kind that's staked in the front.
Kara, is this the one that we were just talking about at our meeting on Tuesday?
You and I spoke about this.
The abandoned proproperties?
Yeah, a while back.
It's already designated. So it was designated. She was a new owner at the time, and we've been coordinating with code and building services because it is. I walked through the site last month. Yeah, I met with them, the building official, and the assistant building director, and walked through the site with the property owner to explain that what they had to do to move forward. And she is working with an engineer now to get a report of the conditions assessment done to provide to us with her next request.
Yeah, but I don't believe it's designated, though, is it?
It is designated. Yes.
But it didn't come before the board for the board to accept the designation, did it?
I believe it came in May. I might be the timing. Well, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that, Kara?
October of 2021. It had been deferred a few times, but it was finally designated by the board in October of 2021.
It was changing hands, I think, in between the process, and then in October, it was designated. Okay. Warren went out in, I believe, January, and again in April, and then I was out there last month.
Okay, but it's fallen down.
Yes, it's not in good shape at all, and there's really no other work she's doing to it. We're giving her the chance to get that assessment done, and then we are going to be in discussion about demolition by neglect and what the next steps are going to be.
Okay.
We got there.
Thanks. Okay, I'd like to have a continuing discussion regarding the TDRs. The TDRs are a sale of development rights, and it's real property. And you're transferring that real property from one property to another, from one historic property to another. And the effect of it is when something is purchased, okay, and these rights are purchased, the only thing that can essentially be developed is the square footage that's there, or that's not sold. And so the intent, and we have a wonderful, law about this, but we need some real assistance in the code. The intent is as a financing tool to assist in the preservation and conservation of the property, okay? And the reports that we get are called maintenance and preservation plans, and they're not. And we need, as a body, and we've discussed this now for well over a year, to have a working session with legal counsel to discuss how to help this process be more than just a report on what the existing condition of the building is. Because when this is transferred, and I will give you an example, if the current price is $35 for TDR, and which is each foot that you're able to sell, the sale of the previous property would be about $500,000, not quite. Okay. Now they've got costs that have to go into that, but they would gross about $500,000. So where's that money going to go? We have no requirement to make it, to restore the building, and we have no long-term look at this. We don't offer any policies in our TDR program that says, look, we really need to be looking at how this building is going to be preserved over time. Because we as the community have granted that right to that property owner to sell that and to make money. However, the following property owners have no obligation. They can't do anything with the building. It's designated historic, but they didn't get the financial benefit of that either. And so what do you do over time? How do you maintain these properties? We need to have a discussion with that, as a working session where we can deal with that. And, it's something that we've discussed now, like I said, at this board for well over a year. And it's something that I would like to see moving forward, and I think it would really benefit us well.
So just a quick question for the Assistant City Attorney. What is the best way to do a working group? Is it a subcommittee, something that we need to?
So we looked at that before. The best thing to do would be just a special meeting of this board to discuss. Again, those requirements about TDRs and those reports are in the zoning code. So those are zoning code changes that need to go through the Planning and Zoning Board and our text amendments that need to go to commission. So this board, as you have done in other situations, can make recommendations to the commission asking that those changes be made. But the best way to do so would be, within the confines of the Sunshine Law, a special meeting of this board to discuss TDR maintenance requirements. I would note, as you all know, property owners, no matter if they were the ones who got the benefit or not of TDRs, are subject to demolition by neglect requirements in our city code. So the property should continue to be maintained in that way, although certainly they don't get the financial benefit of that. So I just wanted to note that for the record as well, that there is some ongoing obligation to any owner of a historic property, whether or not the TDRs are sold.
Just as a follow-up to that, to Mr. Maxwell's comment and your comments, is there anything that precludes us as a board to adding condition? Say, for example, this case that came before us today. Can we request yearly inspections or something? Just
them doing these.
So that's not currently contemplated in the code to condition the approval. The approval of this board in the current code is a review and approval of a maintenance plan. There's not a lot of details about conditions. There's not a lot of details about what is in the maintenance plan, which I know is Mr. Maxwell's point, but it doesn't contemplate this board putting conditions of approval on the approval of that plan. There are a few conditions related to even being a TDR sending site, that no code enforcement, outstanding issues, liens, money owed to the city, et cetera, that the historic preservation officer and the city attorney look at. But other conditions of approval are not really contemplated in this process. But again, that's something you all could discuss.
I will tell you, I had multiple conversations with the city attorney at the time when this was first written, because I was concerned about that. I think it would be very helpful if we have a special meeting of this board.
Can you use the microphone, Donna? I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. I think it would be very helpful if we have a special meeting to find out what other municipalities that have TDR ordinance are doing about it. Because I don't think it's necessary to reinvent the wheel if in fact because I know that we specifically did not put in anything to track the money.
Yeah.
And I don't know what has been done since then in other municipalities, but I'd be very interested to see.
We have traditionally followed the National Park Service. I mean, we follow, what the National Park Service does, and we have, particularly with the National Register, and so if we look at what the National Park Service requires, in terms of what's called a maintenance and preservation plan, it's very different from what we're doing.
But I'm talking
and it's
about
not
the money.
about following the money.
But what I'm talking about is the money, because the flaw in the TDRs is you can pay $50,000, you can get $500,000 for your TDRs, pay $50,000 for it, pocket $450,000 and sell it to someone else. And so we discussed escrow accounts and all types of things that could possibly help the building, but that was never implemented, and I think maybe other municipalities have.
Well, would it
I'm
be,
more concerned about the money for the building than I am about the conditions report, which I know you are,
Right.
because we have, like, this report is very thorough, I believe, from Rich Eisenbottle. And if someone took that and then went through the years, then the building would be in decent shape, but they may not have the money to do it. That's all. That's my
and that
concern.
really goes to the question of what the long-term viability of what it is that we're proposing and what we're looking at. We're saying that, look, here's a building that's now 100 years old. Okay, it's got issues. We all know that. All buildings have issues. But to only look at something that's 2 or 3 years out, and yet you've sold all the opportunity, for that, and just said, well, I'm going to fix the gutters. I mean, I can tell you just by looking at that, that there's a lot more than $45,000 there that needs to be done. And so what kind of commitment, do we get for enabling this? It's like zoning. Zoning is a public grant to a private entity that says, we're going to say that you can build this and you can make money on that, or not. And that's exactly what we're doing. And the intent of the TDR law is to say, okay, we're going to give you a financial incentive to preserve this building. But if we don't preserve the building at the time that the TDR is granted, who's going to do it later on? You're just basically saying we're going to allow demolition by neglect, or we're just going to allow this building to be as it is.
But in fact, that's what I discussed with the former city attorney. We do have an ordinance in place that is very clear about demolition by neglect. That can kick in. It's separate and apart from the TDRs, separate and apart from the money, but it's there, and there are documents that need to bring to this board. And it's very, I think, well-written. I didn't write it.
Yeah, there's a backstop, but understand your concerns as well.
It's really about clarification and clarification of intent. What do we look at over time for, as a requirement for granting this? And then what are the requirements? Like I said, I think it's very simple to say, okay, great. You've got this preservation and maintenance plan, and you're telling me you're going to fix the gutter. What's going to happen if you have a fire? It's not addressed. What's going to happen if the sprinkler, inundates the entire building and it's all wet? What are you going to do? How are you going to pay for it? Do you maintain insurance? I mean, what's your policy? I mean, it's just simple policy matters that any practical building manager would have. And this is not what the Park Service does. They say, here's what we're going to be doing over time. Not necessarily this specific project, but how we're going to maintain and preserve this over time. So the question goes, should we have a workshop or a special meeting or both? Because a workshop would really be a better way so that staff could present, here's what the code is, here's what we found in terms of doing our research with 2 or 3 other cities that we found, here's what the National Park says, and here's what our legal department says that we can do within the state of Florida. Because that's a huge requirement. If we can't do that, then we can't do it, but we need to know.
I mean, I think of those as one and the same. A workshop or a special meeting, whatever we want to call it, is fine. But I think practically speaking, it just entails a sunshine notice meeting where we all can sit and discuss and do that publicly and open to the public manner. So,
And we want it open to the public, and we want their opinion.
yeah, I mean, it has to be. You guys all work in the sunshine. So we can certainly work with staff. And I think we're still missing one board member, correct?
Yes.
So I think once we have a fully staffed board here, we can start looking at dates and doing that research and give Anna and myself some time to pull that stuff so we can have a productive meeting.
Do you think that we could do that before the end of the year?
We have 3 meetings. One of those meetings has to also include a special meeting with the Landmarks Advisory Board. So that
Which
means
is
we would
next
have
month.
to have well, that's actually one of the things I put up on my list that we have to talk about. So if that's October, November, and December, I don't know when the next appointment is going to happen. So if we want to move it forward without the next appointment by the commission as a whole, I don't have control over that. So we could maybe.
Why do we need to wait for the next appointment?
We don't. I was just saying that we don't have our full board yet, is all.
Yeah, and then like typically
Who are
we wait till the
missing?
next
I thought
appointment
Mr.
so that we could
Bolanos was
also
just
vote.
reappointed. I thought we're now up to
Still
full
missing one.
staff.
No.
Sorry.
Oh, you're missing? Oh, you have.
I'm here, but I'm not
You're not
reappointed.
here.
Right.
You're the invisible man.
Yeah.
Oh,
I like the idea of doing this sooner than later, but I realize the challenges right now. You're getting into the holidays, and there's some other
So
workload.
I don't think it matters, if Mr. Ehrenhaft is still here with us because his
Right.
experience is really wonderful.
if we could shoot for December and I could get an update for you all.
Or you can move it to January. We're just trying to get a time certain here. This has dragged on for a long time.
So so what you're asking for in January is the special meeting?
Yeah, or
Yes.
workshop, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
All of you too. There's your schedules
I understand,
and
but
everything.
staff has got to be
And
ready.
we haven't done our
and
dates for
prepared
2024 yet. So that'll be at the next meeting too.
Perhaps we can work on date selection in the next meeting and then go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we don't have our meeting dates set for 2024.
All right.
So at the next meeting,
So as an agenda item for next meeting, and we'll have that date, okay?
yeah, I'll put it in so that so we could actually make a motion on it. So do we make sure that it's for the special, the request for the special meeting for the TDR workshop?
Well, yeah, but it will have as an agenda item that we can take a motion on,
Yeah.
at the next meeting.
And
We good
perhaps
there,
have
Madam Attorney? Okay.
And perhaps have some multiple suggestions, because I think it would be a great idea to try to have as many of the board members available to attend the
Right.
meeting as possible.
We'll have the next calendar dates available, so you'll know then what they are.
Thank you.
Because that's in coordination with the clerk's office, so I have to make sure that they have that available, and depending on when the city commission meetings are scheduled is when we all kind of infill the rest of the calendar.
Can I inject and ask a question?
Yes, sir.
If you had one of our meetings and the agenda was extraordinarily light, how long a time would the meeting that you're
I think
talking about
it'd be
require?
a meeting that encompasses only that item.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only thing with it is that we have to advertise it as though it's a special meeting, so it's,
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, we could see it as staff and say, oh, we only have, and I mean, we only had 2 items today, and it is,
Of course.
It's 7 o'clock.
Right.
yeah, well, technically 3 items, so they're about an hour an item, so I don't know how much lighter it's going to be. We do have a lot of coming down the pipeline right now, especially for October with the special meeting with the Landmarks Advisory Board, so.
I mean, perhaps it's a thought, because Anna, if you're going to be doing most of the research in the background, and staff is always so excellent at providing us with these wonderful reports, perhaps it wouldn't take more than an hour and we could
Right.
tack it on to an existing
Yeah,
meeting.
and I'll coordinate with some of the members. I'll reach out to everybody to get some input so that I'm looking at things that each one of you have issues with. But that's, if we can do it so that when we have the calendar being approved, and then you all could pick a date off that calendar to do the special meeting for 2024, does that make sense? That way you have all the dates available, and then you all could pick, does January work, February work, and all that. Okay. I appreciate you all working with me. 2024. So we'll have it on when the 2024 meeting dates are being approved.
All right. Is there any old business that anybody has? No?
I have one old item and one new item.
Okay, go ahead.
The old item, the window replacement throughout the city. I have an email out to the city architect, but I'd appreciate, Anna, if you could speak to him too, to try to get on the same page again if this hasn't been happening. We had issues 1603 Granada and 512 Aragon, these historically significant homes that are not designated, that are somehow slipping through the cracks and getting inappropriate fenestration. There's 2 more that came to my attention, 604 Navarre and 540 Menorca. They tell us every time this isn't going to continue to happen, but it continues to happen. So I don't know what the problem is, but it's changing the face of these streets where you have buildings that had 1920s style and 1930s style windows that are being replaced with picture windows.
Okay. I'll definitely follow up with Juan on that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Did you see the house on DeSoto, at the intersection of DeSoto and Biltmore? Isn't that a wonderful 1930s house? And it's really been really reworked.
Yes. That one.
And sorry.
There's another example. I didn't pick that one, but somebody else did. And that had a good architect even because it had the plans out in front, the original plans. They knew what they looked like. So how is this happening? Is somebody from your office going to Board of Architects meetings?
Yes, I attend Board of Architects.
So this is, unless you're approving it, this is happening.
No, we're typically only there for the items that are of historic designation already. So we don't go through the entire agenda because it's time consuming and difficult. There are times that if we see something that is egregious, but they don't get sent to us unless they're designated. And then we're now going into virtual submittal or electronic submittal, sorry. So they're just sending them now to us electronically. We used to have to go physically and pick up the plans, the 24 by 36 for every BOA item. And if I had to walk out with the 20 plans and 15 of them are not historically designated, it's a lot of staff time.
But every year I get the same answer. Then we give new examples. Then they fix it for a while, and then the next year it's the same thing. This has been going on.
The Board of Architects is, I mean, I probably have been to more Board of Architects than anybody on the Board of Architects because I started in 1997 and always went to the Board of Architects, whether I was in zoning or the manager's office or in historic. But the Board of Architects has traditionally been really good about seeing that a house is historically significant, even though it's not.
It's being done administratively. That's the problem. These are not cases that have gone to the Board of Architects.
I was going to say, because there are some that happen, administratively, they're not going to be sent to us. We're usually flagged.
Because if it goes to the Board of Architects, they're very good about putting in
they've even
appropriate
reached out in the middle of a meeting to me to ask for the historic photo. So they'll contact us even during the meeting to see if we've already left.
My point is then why
Administrative.
they should have the original photo or the old photo and the plans sent with any property that's over 50 years old, whatever. I mean, that should be part of the process. So every year it's the same thing on that one.
I know they have a few new staff members. I'm happy to talk to Juan and see if maybe we could do like a little historic preservation staff plan review session so that they could kind of see what we look for and what recommendations would be appropriate for those historic buildings.
It's already in place. They're just not doing it. Okay.
Your new item?
Okay. I've been in touch with one of the owners of one of the Otis and Bruce houses in the North Ponce area, and that is the collection of homes. I'll just list the addresses for the record. 16, 20, and 24 Phoenicia, and 15 and 19 Antilla. And this is a neighborhood that's under extreme development pressure. This board recently turned down the Garden of Our Lord designation, and there's a loophole where these properties, because they were built as single-family homes, they do not qualify to be able to get the TDRs, okay? But for all intents and purposes, now they have a cottage in the back. I believe all of them but one has a second dwelling unit on the property. Maybe all of them. I'm just not sure if it's either 4 out of the 5 or 5 out of the 5. And I would like this to go to a sunshine meeting or a workshop as to how we can get them included to be able to get the TDRs and have a neighborhood meeting with them. I think that they want to preserve their neighborhood. They love these historic homes. They're beautiful 1920s architecture. It's just this kind of little loophole that isn't in their favor. So
I'm sorry, are you clarifying that you would want them to be included as a TDR sending site?
correct.
Yes. Okay. So that's another code provision change that would need to be, could be just part of that same discussion. But that is the physical boundaries of TDR sending sites are in the zoning code as well as
No, they're within that. They're in the North Ponce
Yeah, they're within
neighborhood.
it. It's just because it's a single family, it doesn't meet the criteria.
But
that could also be part of the discussion, I think, within that TDR, because it seems like there's a few issues that need to be resolved. And that discussion can be part of
Okay.
that one sunshine meeting. And we can, once I reach out to all of you, maybe I'll create a mini agenda on that so that we can have kind of a discussion of all the topics that maybe need to get.
Well, I suggested a separate one. Do you want it as a separate or?
I think all together is better. The way we're kind of going through it all at once. And if anything else comes up, it's the appropriate time to bring it up.
Okay.
And anything else that you've got on that, Mr. Gillis, I mean, please bring it up and we can include it in there.
But they may want to meet with you before that, just to
Okay,
talk to
yeah,
you
no,
about the
I'm happy to
program in
meet with them.
general, you know.
I could talk to them about other incentives
Okay,
and things that
great.
they
That's
have questions on.
because That would be great, thank you. Okay, thanks, that was it for me.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to make a clarification about my comment before. When I was asking about tagging on to a light meeting and having a discussion where everybody's here, I wasn't talking about having the substantive
Okay,
final session that included public and everybody. I was talking about, you mentioned that we ought to tighten our focus and have discussions under sunshine, but have discussions
Yeah.
about all the stuff that
yeah, I think,
could possibly, you know.
right, almost create like a little
good
agenda or checklist of
solutions, yeah.
items. Yes.
That's all I meant.
As a discussion item,
I was
okay.
not talking about having the.
Yeah, that could happen when we vote on the date. So that way, we're voting on the date of the special meeting, and then you all can then make input on what items you want to discuss so that we have kind of a clear task of.
But it takes knowing ahead.
That it's a mini,
that it's
a
gonna be
shorter agenda.
substantive. No, that people are prepared and they're bringing.
Right.
Bringing, you
Okay.
know, ideas and examples and stuff.
We'll be
to the
working on the next agenda items in the next few weeks, so we typically can give kind of the 2 weeks' notice of where we are at, and then I'll also have to check with the clerk's office again about their 2024 meeting dates, because I need to get that from them.
Any other questions, discussion? New business, old business, in between business, delayed business? No? Okay. So we're done. So we have a motion for adjournment. Anything else for the good of the order? Motion for adjournment?
I'll move for adjournment.
Second, Mr. Aaronhalf, Mr. Gillis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, folks.
Thank
very much.
you.
At 7 p.m. 7:04. And thank you very much. And thank you, staff.